read by Senator Sylvia Kasanga. Not there, we will defer that.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Michael Mbito. Senator Sylvia Kasanga. Okay, Standing Order 48-1. Senator Samson Cherargei. Senator George Haniri.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 48, paragraph 1, to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy concerning the frequent power outages in Vihiga County. In the statement, the chairperson should, number 1, explain why Vihiga County experiences frequent power outages that cause disruptions in the economic and socioeconomic activities. Number 2, explain what has been done about it so far, considering that this is an issue that has been going on for a long time, and I think I've brought it here before on the floor of this House. And number 3, explain when and how this issue will be dealt with once and for all. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abdullahi. Senator Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank Senator Haniri for bringing this statement. This statement should not only be about Vihiga. It should be the whole country, because KPLC has failed this country, Mr. Speaker. They are collecting money from everybody, and they are failing in everywhere. Forget about the rural areas. Even in Nairobi, they are failing. You can imagine somebody has to pay something like 30,000, 40,000 for a house where there are only 5 people. These guys are looters, Mr. Speaker. Something should be done about this. In Wajir, we have had problems about KPLC day in, day out. For the last now, I think nearly 1 month, we have a problem. The whole town is on rationing. We are going into Ramadan soon. And if we continue with that, there might be even riots in Wajir, Mr. Speaker. And you remember I've brought 3 or 4 times issues concerning Wajir to this House. And most of the time, nothing happens. The former manager left, a new one came, they did something, and now they are going back to where they were before. So I will wish to ask the committee to look into these issues, not only about Vihiga, also Wajir and some other parts which have serious problems in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chila Yako, and we have a problem with the system, so use the dispatch. Yes, yeah. I have seen you, Linturi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the problem we have is also with KPLC. This dispatch seems to be linked to KPLC. KPLC is a very problematic animal, Mr. Speaker, and I'm glad the chair of the committee, Senator Ephraim Maina, is here. Your entity, KPLC, I had the privilege of being a one-time minister for energy, and we noticed that they suffer from 2 kinds of losses: technical losses that lead to power outages. They also suffer from commercial losses. So KPLC is a loss-making entity, which it shouldn't. It's a monopoly. KPA is supported heavily by Treasury. Treasury borrows and guarantees money to KPLC to improve services to Kenyans, yet KPLC is unable to do so. Mr. Speaker, as we speak now, last week, my wife, who runs my electricity bills, found out that KPLC changed one of the bills for her hotel to her personal name, and in order to get it back, they wanted her to pay 10,000 shillings. They change when you don't request them and demand 10,000 shillings from you. And she had to look for the money, give it to them, and later on request for refund. Mr. Speaker, I want to request the chair of Energy Committee to deal seriously with KPLC. They are good at disconnecting people's power supply. They are good at not responding to people's requests. By the year in, year out, they keep on pleading to government to give them our money, to guarantee loans they have taken from our money. I think they should tell us whether they have failed so that we start another entity, or KenGen is made, or other generators are made to distribute electricity instead of having KPLC as a monopolist. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The system is back, so you can speak from where you are. So you don't cut up your hand. I'm seeing Senator Linturi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support Senator Aniri's statement. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's worth noting that power outages is not only a common phenomenon in Vihiga. Meru is, I think, one of the worst hit counties in terms of power outages, despite there being some substations within the county, and especially an area where I come from, Maua. Mr. Speaker, I have gone through the brunt of staying without power. I run a generator to run my own house, and yet I have Kenya Power next to my door. So the problem we are talking about, I think, cuts across this country. And I think as the committee is looking into this matter, there are a few other things that they must be able to bring back to the committee or to the attention of this country, because, Mr. Speaker, a lot of resources have been channeled to Kenya Power through various agencies to establish or to make sure that power distribution in this country is effective, is efficient, and power is accessible to most common citizens. Mr. Speaker, I remember very well when there used to be the REA, and at that time I was a member of parliament of the National Assembly. Every particular year, every constituency used to put in around 15 to 30 million, because that was what we used to call a matching facility for provision of power in our constituencies. This money was just, in my view, just like in grants Kenya Power. I would want the committee to further understand, in terms of that direct investment by our member constituencies to Kenya Power, what is actually the return on that investment? Because Kenya Power is half private, is half government, and money that has been put there by way of CNDF, grants, or whatever it is, must be reflected back by way of how much Kenya Power is able to pay to the exchequer every financial year, if at all they are making any profits, because I've not had the opportunity to interrogate the accounts. And if they are not making any profits, then, Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate, and we don't expect this to change in the near future if that is the situation. So, Chairman, this committee will be waiting, the country is waiting to see, even beyond the outages, the power and bills are also too expensive. The economy is doing bad. Our hustlers down there are not able to access power. They cannot afford to pay for it. We are being disconnected every time. They can't run their kiosks. So things are bad. So, Mr. Speaker, I need to thank you for bringing this statement, and I think it has come at the right time.
Senator Agnes Zani. Okay. Okay, it's back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to support Senator Kaniri for this statement. Senator Kaniri continuously brings statements from his county on issues that touch on his county, so he's representing his county very well. And as he does that, he's also representing many other counties. I don't think there's any county that is not suffering from power blackouts, consistent power blackouts, sometimes without even somebody knowing. Mr. Speaker, this also even goes to industries. I think this committee should also investigate for every 1 hour of having no power, what is that translation in terms of industrial loss, and how much money are we losing? Because, Mr. Speaker, this is what I think some of the investors consider even before they put up their businesses. You might find that if they know they're going to have power blackouts all the time, then they might not really be keen. And even at the household level, Mr. Speaker, there are people who have suffered, who have bought their foodstuff, and then the power has gone off for a whole day, sometimes without warning. Sometimes Power Enlighten, they try to inform. Sometimes they give a profile of the places that might not have. But then the question is, so what do you do with that? Because you need power anyway. Mr. Speaker, I think this committee also needs to begin to look at alternative means of energy. I know there was a lot of talk about solar energy from the Committee of Energy, windmill energy. How far has this committee gone on engaging with stakeholders to find how we can look for these other alternative sources of energy through other means? Because I think this would be very, very important. Despite all that, you find that people have to pay very high power bills and a lot of disappointment in this sector. So I think this committee has a lot of work. From that one question from Senator Kaniri, we can really just expand it to the whole issue of that particular sector in terms of provision of electricity throughout the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Farhia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Senator Khaniri, for bringing this statement. Mr. Speaker, power outrages is everywhere in this country, including the Lavington of this world, the Karen of this world, the Wajir of this world. Everywhere there is power outrage. You know, sometimes what I don't understand in public sector is, if somebody doesn't deliver, why are you keeping them there? This problem of Kenya Power has been there for quite some time. And then the other thing is, in my county, for example, Mr. Speaker, every year during Ramadan time, there is power outrage completely. And sometimes you just wonder whether they work with the devil, because there is no any other explanation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other thing is Marsabit has, it produces 210 megawatts of electricity. Wajir is a neighbor to Marsabit County. What is the problem of just pulling that power from, even from Marsabit to Wajir, so that people of Wajir can feel part of this country and they can be served as well? Mr. Speaker, the other thing is, if it doesn't work, do something about it. Why are we not privatizing fully Kenya Power? Let the government sell it. If it can't provide power, privatize also, provision of power, so that people can there are people who can invest in Wajir, for example, and they can start billing and they can get power. Like I said here another time, power outrage has been in Wajir since I was in primary school. So can you imagine, Mr. Speaker, what kind of a solution is this, that year in, year out, there is nothing? Then the other thing is, if we could have privatized, even the cost of energy would have come down. And not only come down, but come down significantly. Mr. Speaker, I think there is also a problem with the billing system of Kenya Power. Not only do they charge you highly, you wonder where that money goes, because Kenya Power is a money-losing machine. And we are just watching as it loses money, yet the amount, how much they charge and how much is the output, it doesn't correlate at all. So where does all this money that we pay goes to, Mr. Speaker? And Mr. Speaker, in this House, if we talk about a problem, because from 2018 up to now, I think there is no time that either Senator Dr. Ali or myself did not bring a statement to this House regarding power in Wajir, but nothing happens. So why are we wasting our time debating here if our contributions do not account for anything, Mr. Speaker? I think it is high time that Kenya Power is dealt with, decisively, so that Kenyans do not lose their resources to a money-losing venture, Mr. Speaker. How long can the government finance? And then this country is full of, clean energy. There is solar, there is wind, enough. You don't even need, fuel-based, energy. From hydro to solar to wind, there is enough power in this country. I think let us, harness that opportunity that this country have instead of just, us having to lose money all the time, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ephraim, I'll give you an opportunity since you are the chair. I'll give you last. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it's actually a misnomer to call this company Kenya Power and Lightning. It's Kenya no power and no lighting. It's a misnomer. Mr. Speaker, the second point is when all of us got tired of talking about Kenya Airways, we formed a select committee. It is when we discovered what the problem of Kenya Airways was: mismanagement, looting by the group of Titus Naikuni and Gunze. Mr. Speaker, what nobody is going to say is that Kenya Power is overwhelmed by faulty transformers brought here by tenderpreneurs. They will never tell you. In Makueni alone, there are 300 failed transformers. By the time they replace those transformers, Mr. Speaker, people are running for months and months on end without electricity. Schools are suffering. High schools are suffering. This cost is being transferred to teachers and parents because they have to pay for the cost of generators. The third one is this, and the most important actually, is that any company that attempts to get a license for alternative energy, they get hell on earth in the ministry. Because the ministry officials are protecting cartels. That is where the problem is. I know somebody who is prepared to do solar energy in Kenya, solar energy in Makueni, but even to get an appointment to do so, you cannot get. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we must interrogate this issue. The wind power, both from the projects that are in Turkana, Gong Hills, etc., you don't even know where this energy goes to. Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege through an organization in Germany of the first chancellor, and I went with Senator Petronila and Senator Kinyua. The Germans have figured out this problem. They have acres and acres of wind power and acres of solar power. One windmill is enough to do these sort of problems. But what Senator Linturi is saying is correct. While Senator Linturi, Senator Linturi professes to be a hustler, can afford a generator. His generator is 2 million shillings or 3, and he can pay fuel of up to 30 or 40,000 a month. The real poor Kenyan cannot even afford a lamp. The welders, the people who are doing small little things, cannot weld. Markets are dead. So, Mr. Speaker, if we are going to actually promote the things that are happening in the countryside, Mr. Speaker, is to get to the bottom of Kenya Power. But if you call the minister here quietly, and the chairman is a very polite man, very extremely polite gentleman, and he has been here for a long time, and he knows he is going to be so nice to those people. Mr. Speaker, Cabinet Secretary comes here with his PS. Let us interrogate the energy sector, not only through of non-provision of power, but why we cannot license private companies to provide alternative sources of energy. That is the solution, to wake up this company and remove the word Kenya from them, because they are not Kenya. That is not the way Kenya should be. Thank you.
Senator Mahmood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me also thank Senator Kaniri for bringing this statement, of course, regarding power outage in Vihiga. But power outage, Mr. Speaker, is actually a phenomenon in the whole country. It's not, confined to only Vihiga. I think Kenya Power and Lighting over the years have not been able to light up the country as required. If you look at the system data on national grid, at the slightest of the rain, you see there's outage. In fact, you don't see the relation between rain and power outage. And in fact, even in Nairobi, this outage is very common. In systems where you come from, where we are off-grid, there are areas in this country where, they are put up, off-grid systems, and those are not functioning. A case in point is in my county, a place called Elwak, which has been in darkness for the last several months. Takaba, which is, of course, in the same position. And Mandera town itself, of course, where the generators there are under capacity and nothing is being, no attempt is being made to bring them to standard. We are told every time they are procuring new generators, the capacities which were planned some years back are not functioning anymore. And people actually have to, bear power rationing, which is actually nobody knows when it's going to end. So, Speaker, I think Kenya Power and Lighting Company, as a monopoly of power in this country, must up their game. And as mentioned, the committee must able to interrogate this properly so that, we are able to give power and light, lighting where it is required. And because they are the only ones who are supplying this commodity, I think something must be done, and they must actually be put to task, because there's no competition. And of course, the bills are getting very high every time. The people are complaining about their bills. We're also paying for some independent power suppliers. We don't know how long those will be there. So the combination of power sources, hydropower, the independent power stations, which are either wind or diesel generated. I think all these combinations, over time we have been told things is being done, but I think as the population of Kenya grow and also as the demands for power increases, I think Kenya Power and Lighting must put up their sources, and especially in the off-grid systems, in those outlying areas in our region, something must be done. And I urge Kenya Power and Lighting, as soon as possible, they must restore power in Elwak, which the people who are suffering today under this heat, where temperatures are going to over 35, and this cannot be bearable anymore. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Outa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to take again this opportunity to thank my neighbor, Senator Aniri, for bringing this statement. Kenya Power. It has become more of a white elephant in this Republic of Kenya. We are affected in the Kisumu County, Mr. Speaker, and as you know, I know some of the members call themselves hustler, but the small businesses people in Kisumu, especially the Mama Mboga who wanted to do their business at night, the people who are doing welding, they cannot do their job because it become a tradition, even in a city like Kisumu, where the economy depends on the supply of power. Mr. Speaker, you realize in any slight change of weather in the evening, you will expect the blackout for hours. Any small slight change in the weather, whether it's in the morning or in the evening or daytime, there will be total blackout. And this has gone on for ages. The real thing here, or the major problem, or the elephant in the house, is the cartels that embedded themselves in this company. Because today, even as you want to bring the alternative solution to have enough power for this country to grow, you are not going to be able to break that cartel. That cartel, I want to tell the chairman, if he's listening, that cartel today, if you're going for an alternative license, you're not going to get it. Because Kenya Power has already given them out. So anyone who is coming with a new investor, to find an alternative so that Kenya can have enough supply, you are not going to be able to be licensed. I personally brought people here. They did a survey in Kisumu. They came up with alternative like windmill, which can can produce a lot of power, and the extra will be channeled to the main grid. They, up to date, applied for it, never got a license. Another group came in to be able to do what we call the solar. They did a survey there at Awasi. They found a station so that they could have enough for the Western Kenya. Up to date, they cannot be able to be licensed. So there's a cartel in Kenya Power and Lighting. And I want the chair to go deeper, not only the outages of the supply of power, but to go deeper and to be able to come up with all the names of the cartel within the Kenya Power. Because for them, they are comfortable. You cannot move them. They think they owe Kenya, they own Kenya. They don't even need any advice from anybody. In the village areas where my home is, if the power went off, you're going to have a blackout for months. They cannot even be able to afford to replace those poles. In any case of wind, just blow them out. They cannot. So the Kenya Power is comfortable in their zone, but it's the high time, Mr. Speaker, to wake them up and be able to get rid of the Kenyans who have embedded themselves as cartels to allow us to develop this country. And I want to thank you that this alternative is what we need to move. This is the only thing that's going to be able to awaken Kenya Power and Lighting. If we don't push and be able to find who are these people that you have given this license, who cannot give them out, and give them the timeline. If anyone has already been licensed and they cannot be able to come up with investment, they should be given timeline. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we'll be able to rescue the Kenyans who need this power to develop this country. And I thank you.
Senator Mogeni Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I first want to thank Senator Niri for bringing this very important statement to the House. Mr. Speaker, anybody who uses power in this country will affirm that power that is being provided by Kenya Power is the most unreliable source of power in all parts of this country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if we go down memory lane, we know that privatization has made life easier for many Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. If we never allowed companies like Safaricom, Airtel to set foot in Kenya, we will not be having access to communication through our mobile phones the way we are doing. Mr. Speaker, unless we solve the problem of monopoly by Kenya Power, we will continue to have problems. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know why this country cannot learn from other jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, I was a student of geography, and when I was doing Form 6, and if there is anybody who did A levels, we had a topic that was teaching about a program that was introduced by President Franklin Roosevelt in Tennessee Valley Authority. It was a whole chapter. And the Tennessee Valley Authority, Mr. Speaker, was set up with the aim of not only controlling floods, but also providing a source of power to Americans who are living in the state of Tennessee. And as if you check today, Madam Speaker, Tennessee Valley provides the cheapest source of power to the national grid in America. So if we allow liberalization in this country, you will be surprised that maybe we'll even access power much cheaper than what we are paying to Kenya Power today. So why are we not opening up this sector? We invite other investors to come and provide reliable and cheap electricity to Kenyans. Why are we behaving like we are in Stone Age, Mr. Speaker? I mean, that will be a source of jobs. Tennessee Valley provided employment to many Americans. It controlled floods. I mean, the other day I was at home, Mr. Speaker, enjoying an evening, then power disappears, and I never saw it till the following day. No warning, no nothing. And even if you call that customer line, you will call for eternity, nobody will pick your call, there will be no solution. I hope that the committee that is chaired by my good friend, Senator Ephraim Maina, can provide some solutions going forward. We cannot allow this kind of situation to continue. I don't understand why in northern Kenya, where there are vast acres of land, why can't we have wind power? Why? Why not? Why are we relying on Kenya Power? Really? The temperatures up there, Mr. Speaker, we can even have solar power. So we really need a solution. Our people are suffering, and we need a solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, Chairman, as you come, you can hear, and I remember this issue was here, where we even directed that the whole House sits and meets the Energy Committee and all the stakeholders. So as you even come to talk, maybe you need to bring us up to speed on what really happened, because I want to give a direction that will address this matter once and for all. Because we cannot become a house of lamentation. There are very many other books to read in the Bible. We cannot just be reading a lamentation. Senator Ephraim Maina. Senator Maina.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my friend Senator Kaniri for bringing up this statement. But this is not the first time this matter is coming. And this is not the first time that my committee has consistently been concerned. Gentlemen, we are all Kenyans. First of all, I must say, what Senator Kaniri has brought here, it is not particular to his county. It is in all counties. It's even here with us in Nairobi. I don't know where you people live, but I can tell you, I am actually a culprit of these shortages. I keep on buying gadgets in my house, adapters, what have you, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, there is no doubt there is a problem. But the question is, and I must remind you the history of this country, Kenya Power was actually our prime company one time. When I was growing up, I mean, Kenya Power was a company that one admired. I remember in my secondary school, they came to try and they train some of us, recruit some of us to go and work for Kenya Power. But Kenya Power was a very efficient company. Therefore, gentlemen, let us not just condemn that Kenya Power as an idea was wrong. And I want to caution here that this private partnership we are talking about is not the solution to this world. Look at countries that have developed, including America. They developed and they are where they are because of big state corporations. You know, the NASA projects there are done by state corporations, and they work efficiently. Kenya was there. Where did we go wrong? Mr. Speaker, somebody, I think Senator Mutula has mentioned that there is issues of some transformers, about 400, which were bought. And we have constantly in my committee demanded that we are assured these 40 transformers were never installed. I don't know what happened, you know? But when we say that, there is a KBC story. You can tell me, it's more recent. I don't know whether you have the right story. Therefore, gentlemen, we are going through, what we are facing are things that might have happened because of our behavior. These so-called cartels are not cartels of simple people, if they are there. And they are not just in Kenya Power. They are in every sector that we are concerned with. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there will be a knee-jerk solution to this problem. But my committee has gone into it several times, and we are ready to go back to it. Mr. Speaker, I quite agree with you. And I want the members to have a chance where we will call these people, you interrogate them, but in the end of the day, truly, Parliament can only do the questioning, can only do, try to investigate, can only try to offer solutions. My committee has offered that you don't buy transformers from some rural village somewhere in northern India or Pakistan or China. Go and buy transformers where we used to procure them. Germany, Britain, and you can get maybe a 10-year guarantee, and they used to stand, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, oh, there's a point? Okay.
Mr. Speaker. Funeral. And somebody will be sanitizing this microphone. Mr. Speaker, is it in order? Chairman is lamenting even more than the person who has requested the statement. The man we are looking up to tell us whether they are Indian transformers or whatever. And in fact, the chairman should not be looking for an assurance from the Ministry of Energy or KPLC. He should have documents. Were those transformers from whatever, were they installed or not? Mr. Chairman, I seem to think, and I just want to suggest, that we form a select committee where we can request for documents, where we can check, but even more importantly, we can ask Kenyans to come here and tell us the problems they've had with KPLC, so that the committee led by good friend Senator Ephraim Minor can suggest even legislative changes to suggest when he's on the floor, Mr. Speaker, that private partnerships will not work, is actually attempting to answer questions which we have not asked yet. Please, Speaker, please direct the chair.
Yeah, there we are. Thank you. Finally, we are there. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'm not going to dwell too much on big languages. I know lawyers learn many languages. I'm not lamenting, Mr. Speaker. All what I'm doing, and it was, I think, procedural for me to be cut short. All what I wanted this House to note is that we are with them, and what we have done. My committee has offered, Mr. Speaker, that we will do a letter to Treasury, if need be, asking that Kenya Power be given exemption if the issue is listed therein, so that they can procure transformers from the best in the world. That does not mean the committee is lamenting. We have gone a step further to solve the problem. But Mr. Speaker, let me now come to the point that Mr. Speaker, I quite agree that we need to interrogate this matter and bring it to an end.
What is your point of order, Senator Linturi?
No, Mr. Speaker.
There's a point of order.
A bit of protection is good because...
I know, but...
no.
He's also entitled to...
Here. Are you a hustler?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I am an hustler. I'm proud to be one because I've hustled where I am. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you've heard the chair of the Energy Committee suggesting that they are going to write a letter to the Ministry to the Treasury seeking exemption for Kenya Power to buy transformers in whichever country, in wherever area they want. And Mr. Speaker, I would want the chair to tell this committee whether he is the part of the cartel. You know, I have a lot of respect for Mukurum because he's my personal friend. Whether he's the part of the team that does not believe in the rule of law, whether it's the person that does not believe there exists a procurement act in this country, and that particular procurement law requires that when specifications or standards are set for goods and services that are being procured, then the business of the procuring entity is to ensure compliance and conformity with the specs that are being made. And with that, Mr. Speaker, that decision that they are trying to, direction taking, would that be opening a floodgate for more corruption that has taken place and that is deep-rooted in Kenya Power? Because that way, you will buy transformers at whatever price, because there's exemption, Mr. Speaker. Is he in order to suggest the change or the circumventing of a law that is established to deal with the procurements?
Oh, it's working. Mr. Speaker, I think, I don't know whether I'm hearing things right. It's important for people to try and actually understand and see where the reasoning is going. I did not say that you allow Kenya Power to import transformers from every corner. If anything, I was saying that we deal with, and we have said it in the committee, with specific manufacturers, as it used to be. Gentlemen, let me tell you, this whole problem, the problem this first country is facing today is because today, even when you go to buy drugs, you don't know what you are buying. Because we are flooded with things from all over, through these so-called regulations at tendering. Earlier on, there were things that were restricted where you buy them because of the national importance. Kenya Power and the power security is a matter of national security. It's not just a question of just lighting. It's a matter of national security, and we need to ensure that there is quality. And when you go in the market in the world, you buy quality where it is. You don't just go floating tenders the way we have become. A flood, where you flood this country.
Senators, you can log in afresh.
Mr. Speaker, that is the point I was making.
So try to wind up so that you...
Mr. Speaker, yeah, but you see, Mr. Speaker, with all these barrages from the ignorant and the ones misinformed, I have to try to straighten up matters, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker...
No. There's a point of order. There's a point of order. Senator Maina, you are inviting all these points yourself. But let him complete. I know, Senator Maina, be careful with the way you address honorable senators. Proceed.
Thank you. No, Mr. Speaker, they are my colleagues. And, Mr. Speaker, you may not know in our informal sectors, we have a language we communicate. But, Mr. Speaker, let me admit, let me say that, Mr. Speaker, going back to Senator Kaniri, I quite agree, and I think, Mr. Speaker, as you suggested, it was also my feeling that let us invite the ministry. But I must say something. The present management in the Kenya Power that we are dealing with is not the earlier one. You people should be knowing that there was already a change, and they have, the way they have come to us, have actually kind of convinced us that they are trying to do their best to solve the issues that have already been there, Mr. Speaker. Again, we all know, and it's not just a question of power shortages. We all know one time there were agencies that were charging people for electricity, and they were being paid. They were stopped through the effort of my committee, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would gladly accept that we call the ministry, we call Kenya Power to actually try to understand the urgent things they are taking to make sure that this problem is solved once for all. Because a country that cannot provide stable power, adequate power, cannot be a country that will feel it will develop. Thank you.
Okay. He has already finished, eh? Because we'll take more time on this, and I wanted to give direction. That the chair and your committee, I'm directing that within 14 days, you do all these things, because there's an anticipated, within 14 days, you do all these things. If you don't come up with a concrete solution, then the other options that have been suggested will be explored by this House, like what was suggested by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Because this is a matter, if you are hoping to become, if you look at Vision 2030, a middle income, an industrialized country, we cannot industrialize with this kind of power outrages. You can't. That will be a pipe dream. So do justice to this statement by Senator Kaniri. The next statement is by Senator Beatrice Kwamboka. Deferred. Senator Kasanga Sylvia.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 47-1 to make a statement on the issue of general topical concern, namely the abuse and maltreatment of children. I wish to draw the attention of the Senate to a deadly and continuous rising trend in Kenya, where a large number of children are being subjected to various forms of abuse and maltreatment. In such cases, children are being exposed to physical abuse, neglect, emotional and psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and child labor. Article 53 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, establishes the basic rights of children, including protection from abuse, neglect, harmful cultural practices, all forms of violence, inhuman treatment and punishments, and hazardous and exploitative labor. And according to the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, in the consultation with the National Council for Children's Services and African Network for the Prevention and Protection Against Child Abuse and Neglect, developed a national plan for action against sexual exploitation of children in Kenya 2018 to 2022. As such, our government has put in place measures to ensure children are protected from sexual abuse and exploitation. Mr. Speaker, conversely, a 2019 Violence Against Children survey done by UNICEF Kenya found that over the last 2 decades, sexual exploitation and abuse of children has worsened. As shown in these statistics, 1, physical violence was most common type of violence experienced by a child, and reported that 39% of young women and 52% of young men aged between 18 years and 24 years. Nearly 1 in 6 young women, about 16% of those aged between 18 and 24, experienced sexual violence as a child, compared to 6.4% of young men, with intimate partners the most common perpetrators. Around a third of boys, that is 32%, and girls, 34.3%, aged between 13 and 17 years, experienced emotional violence, such as being told that their parent wished they were never born. It is not common for children to report violence or seek assistance. Only 12.5% of young women who had experienced sexual violence as a child sought help, and only 3% of young men. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, many children think violence is to be tolerated. More than half girls, 50%, and almost half boys, 47%, aged between 13 and 17, indicated that it was acceptable for a husband to beat his wife. Mr. Speaker, echoing the words of UNICEF survey, a child's first experience of violence is often at home, in their school, or in their community, where they have a right to feel safe and be protected. It affects children from all backgrounds and can leave them with permanent disabilities, injuries, mental health issues, and emotional scars. Mr. Speaker, over this prolonged period of COVID-19 pandemic, we have all witnessed the numerous social and economic pressures that have intensified the number of cases of abuse and violence affecting the household, including children. Noting that only 12% of cases of sexually related violence against children are reported, leaving over 88% of cases unreported, and the victims' voicelessness over repeated acts that are meted out on them, I would request the Speaker to refer this matter to the Standing Committee of Labor and Social Welfare, pursuant to Standing Order 47-3, so that the committee can, within hopefully 20 days, interrogate the state of achievement of the National Plan of Action as established by the Ministry, furnish this House with a comprehensive report on how the concerned departments are handling these matters, and the report should include the mechanisms in place to identify victims and children at risk, all relevant laws and policies that are utilized in enforcement, status of all convictions and progress made in rehabilitating victims, programs and activities aiding in sensitizing members. Programs and activities aiding in sensitizing members of public, and utilization of relevant budgets by the ministry and relevant departments towards prevention and addressing cases of abuse against children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to support this statement by Senator Kasanga. And Speaker, to be really genuine, there are so many forms of children abuse, and they are diverse. Children are abused psychologically, socially, mentally, even physically. And it is very unfortunate because Kenya is among the member states that signed the declaration of UN Convention on the rights of children, and these rights are actually enshrined in our constitution, Article 53, and every child needs to be protected, and the people to protect children are adults. It is unfortunate that the same people who are supposed to protect children are the same ones sometimes who end up violating the rights of children, Honorable Speaker. As you speak right now, Honorable Speaker, you'll find that there are some children who are out of school, not because of their own accord, but because they've been forced into marriages, Honorable Speaker. Some of them have even been forced into working so that they can provide for families where families are not economically endowed. It is a very painful situation, Speaker, because a child is meant to be a child first. A child is not meant to be a miniature adult, Honorable Speaker. A child should be let to grow just the way it's supposed to grow until eventually it becomes an adult and is able to be out of school in the usual way and begin getting an income. So, Honorable Speaker, there's need to really investigate this statement by Senator Kasanga, because even as you're speaking right now, there are some children who are going through harrowing moments through their own parents, some of them foster parents, sometimes even step parents, some of them are even burnt. I saw on a newspaper at one point, Honorable Speaker, where a child was physically armed, was really burnt. So I believe that the committee is going to do justice to this statement and ensure that we are actually following the international protocol of ensuring rights of children are achieved. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Senator Moses Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Sylvia Kasanga, because she never brings any matter to this House in vain. And the statement that she read, it was full of statistics, data that most of us are probably not aware of. And I do hope that the issues that she has raised will be given importance. And I am suspecting that the same way that she came up with the mental health bill, this statement would lead to some piece of legislation, pioneer legislation, that will further entrench the right of children to be free from abuse and to be free from all sorts of discrimination. Mr. Speaker, not too long ago, we had the Minister for Education saying that we should cane children in schools. And that was his prescription to issues of indiscipline. It was his prescription to issues of hooliganism and criminality in school. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we must recalibrate our sense of morality. The manner in which we were taking care of children in the past, things have changed. And for the minister to make a roadside declaration that let us reintroduce the cane in schools, Mr. Speaker, that reeks of irresponsibility. There are certain statements that can only be uttered once there is a proper policy examination, a proper policy assessment. It is not my view, and I do hope that Senator Sylvia Kasanga is in no way implying that our children need to be caned even more so that they can be straightened. However, Mr. Speaker, let us not mix the issues of upbringing of children in a traditional or a contemporary African society with abuse. Mr. Speaker, meteorologists are telling us the rains are coming next week. If our children were not in school, assuming they were still out of school the way they were for 1 year, there is nothing wrong for a parent to induct a child in agricultural activities. Mr. Speaker, involving your child in plowing the field out in the village is not abuse. It is training him and giving him life skills. Engaging your child in fishing activities is not abuse. It is giving him life skills. We think that bringing our children up is about them sitting before a television set, sitting before a phone and a tablet and playing PlayStation. Mr. Speaker, I will disagree with those NGOs and those civic society actors who think that the contemporary African way of bringing up children is akin to abuse. A line must be drawn between the abuse, which is the caning, which is the sexual harassment, which is the deprivation of opportunities for our children, and legitimate processes of bringing up our children to be responsible members of society. Mr. Speaker, sometimes many of us wish that our children could grow up in the village where we grew up, because I know many of us here, if you tell someone to go and hunt an antelope or hunt a rabbit, they will go and hunt it and bring it home. But tell our children to do that, they are clueless. So let us discipline our children, let us train them, but let's not cross the line of abusing them. Having children working in farms for legitimate reasons in a peasant economy is not abuse. It is only abuse if they have to work in the farms, take care of cows and camels at the expense of going to school. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate Senator Kasanga.
Okay. Finally, Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to even contribute to the statement by my colleague, Senator Kasanga, on child abuse. Mr. Speaker, yes, it is true that our country is a signatory to a lot of international treaties on the care and protection of children. And in most cases, we don't even adhere to the treaties to which we have signed. Mr. Speaker, that needs to be done. But Mr. Speaker, it is also true that a line needs to be drawn between what is child abuse and what is bringing up children. Mr. Speaker, as Senator Kajwanga just said, I remember very well when most of us in this house were growing up, and I believe this applies to almost everyone as we grew up. Mr. Speaker, the bringing up of children at some point was communal responsibility, that society took care of disciplining and making sure that children grow up as responsible citizens, even in the remotest of villages. I remember my own case, Mr. Speaker, when I was growing up, and it was the responsibility of every adult to make sure that if I've been sent to go and fetch water from the river, I don't go playing on the road. And if a parent finds me playing on the road, whether it's my parent or another parent, I will be answerable. I will be asked to do what it is that I was sent to go and do. The Speaker, one of the biggest challenges that we have, and we must admit this, is that the mindsets that we are instilling on our children as parents is not right for them to grow up as responsible citizens in this country, where a child grows up believing that they should never be questioned, whatever it is that they want to do. They should never be disciplined by any other person apart from maybe their father or their mother. And they carry these mentalities to school. And when they are challenged by teachers to do what is right, they look at that as abuse. They have quarrels with their teachers. Some of them even end up organizing strikes in schools. The Speaker, yes, as we walk the talk and we try to ensure that we don't expose our children to abuse in terms of child labor, in terms of sexual abuse, in terms of verbal abuse, in terms of physical abuse, we must also, Mr. Speaker, be ready to instill the right mindset on our children for the betterment of our society. Mr. Speaker, I support the statement. Thank you.
Okay, because of constraint of time, I commit the statement to the Committee on Labor and Social Welfare to take the necessary action. There's nothing to investigate but to look at the issues raised. Statement by Mbito is deferred The statement by Senator Cherargei is deferred. The statement by Beatrice Kwamboka is also deferred. Honorable Senators, I have a communication to make. Honorable Senators, I wish to make the following communication regarding the status of delivery by the county assemblies to the speakers of the two houses of parliament, their decision on the draft Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 and the attendant roadmap on the bill. You will recall that on Thursday, 25th February 2021, I issued a communication where I informed the Senate that as at 2 p.m. on that day, pursuant to Article 257(7) of the Constitution and paragraphs 5 of the guidelines for delivery by the county assemblies, as set out in legal notice number 175 of 22nd November 2019, 34 county assemblies had submitted to the two speakers resolutions on the decision by the county assemblies on the proposed Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. 33 county assemblies delivered the draft bill together with a certificate indicating their approval of the bill, while one county assembly rejected the bill but submitted a certificate of rejection only, without the draft bill. Communication was made to the county assembly stating the requirements under the guidelines for the purposes of their compliance. Honorable Senators, since then and as at 1 p.m. today, 3rd March 2021, the Senate had received submissions from an additional 8 county assemblies, being Kwale, Wajir, Marsabit, Isiolo, Turkana, Nandi, Bomet, and Lamu. Of the 8 submissions received, 7 county assemblies being Kwale, Wajir, Marsabit, Isiolo, Turkana, Bomet, and Lamu submitted the draft bill and the certificate of approval, while 1 county assembly, namely Nandi County Assembly, submitted the draft bill and a certificate of rejection. Honorable Senators, from the statistics I've just read, this brings the total aggregate of submissions from county assemblies to the Senate to 42. You will recall that in my earlier communication made on 25th February 2021, I stated that the threshold required under Article 257(7) of the Constitution for the introduction of the bill in Parliament and attendant requirements in the guidelines have been met. Honorable Senators will, however, note that a bill contemplated under Article 257 of the Constitution is by no means an ordinary bill within the meaning of Standing Orders 125 to 163 of the Senate. A number of issues have arisen concerning the procedure for introduction into Parliament of a bill under this article. There are several procedural questions that have been brought to my attention and that of the Senate Business Committee relating to the parliamentary process. These include: 1, whether the bill should be republished; 2, the maturity period after publication of 14 days and timelines for consideration of the bill; and 3, whether the bill goes through the normal bill process. Honorable Senators, you will recall that during the period of admitting returns from the county assemblies, with regard to the Punguza Mzigo initiative, the Speaker of the National Assembly and I observed that our rules of procedure are deficient with respect to fully actualizing the parliamentary processes contemplated under Article 257 of the Constitution. Honorable Senators, a bill under Article 257 of the Constitution contemplates expeditious process. I refer to Article 257(7) that states, in part, that such a bill shall be introduced in Parliament without delay. This provision seems to be drawn from the lengthy processes attached to the consideration of the bill in terms of collection of signatures in support, verification of the said signatures, public participation undertaken by various county assemblies, and ultimately approval by the assemblies. I am therefore persuaded that the Senate is under obligation to do everything necessary to expedite the introduction of such a bill. Honorable Senators, in our consultations over the process of the bill in the two houses of Parliament, the Speaker of the National Assembly and I were initially of the view that the bill should be republished before its introduction, with minor changes to reflect the current year 2021 on its face, and to include a footnote indicating its approval by a majority of the county assemblies pursuant to Article 257(7) of the Constitution. It is agreed between the two speakers and the leadership of the houses that the bill will be introduced simultaneously and as such as possible follow a similar process. Consequently, the Senate Business Committee, at its meeting held today, Wednesday, 3rd March 2021, resolved that the bill be introduced in the Senate for the first reading on Thursday, 4th March 2021 in the format that it was presented to the 47 county assemblies by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Honorable Senators, in this regard and pursuant to Article 257 of the Constitution and following the SBC meeting referred to above, I direct as follows. 1, that the draft Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 be introduced in the Senate for first reading on Thursday, 4th March 2021. 2, that the Clerk of the Senate urgently obtain sufficient copies of the bill from the IEBC in the format that it was presented to the 47 county assemblies by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to enable introduction of the bill in the Senate. 3, that the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights holds joint sittings with the National Assembly Counterpart Committee on the bill and undertake public participation jointly pursuant to Article 224, and 4, that the Clerk of the Senate publishes an advert on Friday, 5th March, inviting members of the public to submit memoranda on the bill. And I will continue to issue guidelines regarding the parliamentary process as necessary to ensure that it is disposed of seamlessly. I thank you. Senator Mutula Jr.,
Thank you, Speaker, for the communication. I thought for the future, a clarification is important because this is the first time we are doing this. Under Article 257(6), Mr. Speaker, you have communicated that 42 assemblies have now returned the bill with certificates either in the case of approval and others in the case of rejection. An issue, Mr. Speaker, in your further communication that would help the country, under Article 257(6), it reads, if a county assembly approves the draft bill within 3 months, after the date it was submitted, the Speaker of the County Assembly shall deliver a copy of the draft bill jointly to the speakers. So the question arises, Speaker, as to whether the 5 that have not submitted can submit to you and you can accept. Because my own reading of 257(6) suggests that after the 3 months they cannot submit. And it will be important for, not now, even in future, that a communication and a direction on this particular clause is given. The second issue, Mr. Speaker, is I thought, and for good order, and I've suggested this to you, I'm just doing this for the record, that for good order, the communication on the processes as contemplated under 256 should be issued simultaneously or jointly or agreed so that we don't have, we don't look as if we are following our sister house. They issue a communication yesterday, we issue today. It's not tidy. If we have a joint secretariat, let's have joint communication. Let us move together in that format. It will give a good message to the country that under Article 257, where it speaks about Parliament, we are moving in that fashion. Thank you.
Agreed. Actually, this is supposed to be a joint communication, and that's what we had agreed. We'll find out, however, what happened, but otherwise, we're working together so that we are not maybe even contradicting each other. Leader of Minority, Senator Orengo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was unfortunately not being able to be heard during the House Business Committee. I had gone for a funeral in Mombasa. But Mr. Speaker, the issues that probably were raised earlier have been addressed through your statement. But I was just hoping that a little thinking should go into the issue of publication and reading the bill, first reading, second reading, third reading. Because, Mr. Speaker, my reading of the Constitution is that under 257 is that what is introduced in the House is a draft bill. is not another bill. It's a draft bill to be approved. So that when it is published afresh, then it means that it is a different bill altogether. Even the counties didn't publish any bills. What they dealt with was a draft bill sent by the IABC. And you know the Constitution under sub-article 7 says that if a draft bill has been approved by a majority of the county assembly, it shall be introduced in Parliament without delay. If a draft bill, what is being introduced is a draft bill, not the normal bill contemplated in 256. Now, Mr. Speaker, if you look at 256, the procedure that you have just referred to, first, second, third reading, is actually set out. That is an amendment by parliamentary initiative. But if it is by popular initiative, I think going through the first, second, and third reading would undermine the process which is contemplated in 257, which is by popular initiative. But if you go through first, second, third reading, then the Constitution will require, if what you are doing is a mirror of what is in 256, it says between the first reading and second reading, you must have 90 days publication period for public participation. But this is something which has come from the public through signatures. It has gone through public participation in the county assemblies, and it will go under public participation, that I admit. But I think to make it go through the first, second, and third reading, I think that is an issue we need to look at, because if that was the case, then the Constitution would have been very clear, just as it is clear in 256. 256, if you read it very carefully, it talks about those stages, and that each stage should be dealt with distinctly and not at the same sitting. But in 257, it's quiet. And the reason why it is quiet is because it is by popular initiative, and the bill is not read or a first, second time, or third time, but it is approved or rejected. And third reading, what happens during third reading? Third reading contemplates some amendment or going through the bill again clause by clause. But I don't think in 257 that is what is contemplated. So I just think that we need to do a little more thinking so that we don't raise legal. In this expedition, we may hurry, which is good because it must be done without delay. But I think the legal steps that are spelled out, I think we must explain why we want to follow the steps which are not set out in the Constitution.
Thank you, Senator, Leader of Minority. I think if there are procedural issues that will come up when the bill is introduced, we'll address them, and as we have said, the two. Yes, Senator Mutula Kiloto Jr.
In fact, Chair, as Speaker, I was going to ask you politely because this issue actually was discussed at very great length at the Legal Affairs Committee, and the Chair is here, because there are such fundamental issues raised on the timelines, on the processes that were handled by the Legal Affairs Committee. So either perhaps the committee in its work or at some point in a statement can go step by step and address those issues, because Senator Orengo is right. The parliamentary initiative, first reading and second reading is 90 days. 257 talks about introduction immediately and doesn't talk about any other processes, because you cannot amend in third reading. So it's important. But I thought a better way is to have a more detailed communication, and we had asked the legal team to sort of synthesize. There's even an issue raised, and it's important I say so, because it's not a secret. Because if you go to 6.7, it talks about draft bill, draft bill, draft bill. When it goes to 8, it talks about a bill those who are arguing that it must be introduced were saying that the minute it leaves the assemblies is not a draft bill and therefore must be published, which is also not correct legally. But importantly is that the Legal Affairs Committee, and where Senator Orengo and I sit, should ideally guide the country in this very, very new area. Thank you.
Senator, Chair, I'll give you a last chance. Senator Linturi, then Kajwang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice to what Senior Counsel, Senator Orengo, and my good friends, Senator Mutula, has raised in regard to the processes and your admission that when you sat with the National Assembly Speaker, you realized that our procedures are inadequate in trying to address how we need to treat this kind of a bill, because this is the first time that is being introduced in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I think it's important to even do wider consultation on this one, because it didn't Mr. Senior Counsel Orengo's interpretation of Article 256 and 257, in my view, is correct. And what I am left wondering is that if indeed we have to follow what is clearly stipulated in Article 257, and going by your communication, that you'll be publishing a notice in the newspapers within the week to call people to submit memoranda and other things in regard to this bill. And if indeed it's true, the procedure that we want to adopt is that this bill cannot be amended, then what would be the need, what would be the reason for us putting it to public participation? Yet it is expected that the county assemblies have gone through these processes, and my understanding of public participation, because this can never be in vain, why we put that provision under Article 10 is at least to get the reasoning, to get the ideas of the people and how they would want their input in a certain bill. And it is expected that those people collecting ideas during this public participation, then their input must be captured in that report, or even must and be able to advise the amendments that come should be in the bill. So if the process that we want to take is that this bill cannot be amended, then I also don't find there being any need for that public participation. But that's what I'm saying, because this is new, then probably legal minds should sit down, be able to look at it critically and look at the history, look at whether there is any other jurisdiction that and such as a thing, and be able to advise and get the best position possible that we can use. Because the manner in which we treat this will also guide how future bills will be treated, especially when they are meant to inform the constitutional changes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. I think the matter you are raising was actually raised, and the Senator Mutula Jr. was there. Maybe you could, yes, why now if it's not going to be changed at all? And I think there was some agreed position here.
No, the position about constitutional amendment is old. That once a bill is introduced, it cannot be amended. So the question of public participation is not for purposes of amending. It's that of abundant caution following Article 10. And the position therefore is that ideally and I'm not certain because none of the speakers has communicated to any flaw, and I'm not aware that they've said, for instance, in the case of Makueni, the executive conducted its public participation, the assembly conducted its public participation. But in reporting to the Senate, and the National Assembly, did they forward what Makueni residents said? That has not been said by the communication issued by the Speaker, and therefore suggests that that part of the public participation ended there. It was a view of a lot of the people who do not want constitutional challenges, that the portion where Parliament is supposed to consult and listen to public views must be complied with. And if you doubt, there's a very famous South African case about public participation, and therefore is out of abundant caution. Public participation does not necessarily have to lead to amendments, but the position...
There is a point of order from Kinyua.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I am rising to ask Senator Mtula Kilonzo, because what he's saying, public participation from where he sits is just for that purpose. It does not add any value, even after people from Laikipia, from Makueni, participate or put their input in this draft. So what is the need? And from what I heard Mtula Kilonzo saying is that it is an old process. All what we are doing, we are doing it just for purpose of routine, and it does not add any value. So why are we engaging Kenyans to this public participation if there will be no input? And he even mentioned that from your communication, you did not mention what people of Makueni or people of Laikipia said, because even what they said then, it wouldn't matter because it will not change anything. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Mutula. Yes, Senator Orengo.
I like what Senator Mutula was saying, but I just wanted to give information because Parliament is not just a rolling machine. When the matter comes here, we can reject or pass it. Yeah. So in making that decision, we need to know the views of the public. Just like the county assembly, when they passed, the public gave them views of whether to reject or pass. Exactly. So Parliament also needs to get that information and know whether the public wants us to reject it or pass it.
Okay, so that we are able to move, huh?
But by the way, Mr. Speaker, this is very important. This is almost like a class. So Senator Kinyua is actually a student of law. He should be taking notes from what Senator Orengo is saying and I'm saying. But in addition to that, the record of Parliament must have those things that Senator Orengo is saying. And in Article 257 is actually not contemplated that even the National Assembly and Senate will agree. It's actually contemplated. They can disagree. It's also there. But even in your own county like Laikipia, where there was public participation, did they amend anything? Did they listen to the views? Yes, they did. Were you there? Yes, you were. Did you change anything? No. Are you going to sit here and listen and also participate? Yes. That's really the point. So the idea of listening to the views as explained by Senator Orengo is because you must make a decision even though the decision has been made somewhere else. And that decision must be informed by something. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Moses Kajwang, or is that a point of order? So that because we need, that was just a communication, and we need to, time is going to come when you will. Yes. Yes, is it a point of order? You have the mic.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Speaker, listening to this, we are all lawyers, naturally.
The mic should be the other direction. You are pushing it away from.
Okay. No, this thing is so sensitive. This thing is so sensitive, it will catch you even when you are there, or if I talk from there. Mr. Speaker, mine is just to propose. And I said we are all lawyers, naturally. Now, I have listened to the two senior gentlemen, and I think the issue is that we should have some public participation at this level. But the point that I want to ask is, if public participation was done, for example, in Nyeri, I know, it was done in every constituency by public people. And I was there. And they said it's okay, Mr. Speaker. Even if we invite these same people in the counties that are 43, which have passed this bill, are we expecting a new answer? I'm not expecting to be a new answer. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, doesn't the law hold that we should just accept what the counties are done? But I think at your level, you can get that evidence.
Okay, just, as I said, we'll improve as we go along. Senator Moses Kajwang, then the chair.
Mr. Speaker, having listened to your communication and listened to the submission by Senator Orengo, it has addressed one of the questions that I had in my mind, why the requirements of Standing Order 135 was not applying. Because Standing Order 135 relates to amendments by parliamentary initiative, constitutional amendments by parliamentary initiative. There are those who believe that there should be a 90-day period, but I think so far my curiosity has been satisfied, but I think it needs to be made clear for the public to understand why we are not doing the 90-day period between publication. But Mr. Speaker, it would also be remiss if we don't congratulate the assemblies, the ones that you have cited, those that approved the draft bill and those that rejected the draft bill. There's been a narrative that if you reject it, then you are anti-Kenya. I think the assemblies and the people residing in those areas have their democratic right, and they have played out their civic duty to render a judgment on behalf of their people. So let's congratulate our assemblies, and let's also reflect on the things that this Senate has not been able to do for the last 8 years. We had a serious issue around public participation, and whether CIA passing the bill in 1 day, Homa Bay passing it in 2 days was against the values in our constitution, because public participation is one of those constitutional values. But then, Mr. Speaker, we really should not be in this chamber on Hansard debating whether we should conduct public participation or not. I think it is a value, it is a principle in our constitution that should be observed. It's just that we just need to be efficient and creative around it. Mr. Speaker, in December, we passed the anti-doping bill. It was like the proverbial Simon Makonde, published on Monday, public participation on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we were here voting. On Thursday, the president had appended his signature to it, but there was an element of public participation in it. But finally, Mr. Speaker, the guidance that I wish to get from you comes from Article 257.10. Because Article 257.9 is clear that if Parliament passes the bill, it is submitted to the President for assent in accordance with Article 256.4 and 5. And those articles specify the timelines. And it says that within 90 days. But Article 257.10 says that if either House of Parliament fails to pass the bill, or the bill relates to a matter specified in Article 2551, the proposed amendment shall be submitted to the people in a referendum. So 257.10 does not have a timeline in it. It just says it shall be submitted to the people in a referendum. A mischievous sovereign can play around with this, Mr. Speaker, and decide, just like in the matter of dissolution of parliament, where there are no timelines, the decision can pend forever. Could you advise, Mr. Speaker, that if we find ourselves in the circumstances envisaged under Article 257.10, do the timelines remain 90 days, or it is at the discretion of the President? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think ours is very clear. We shall do what we need to do. And the next process, once we take it's taken to the President, he will now liaise, in my understanding, with IBC for the next course of action. Senator Omogeni. Mutula Kilonzo Jr., you have... Omogeni is already on the floor. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to disclose to the House that my committee was already seized of this matter, and we had a meeting this morning, and quite a number of weighty legal issues came up for deliberation before my committee. And Mr. Speaker, before you gave this communication to the House, we had, as a committee, agreed to get some advice from the legal team. We were going to meet again tomorrow to develop some position as a committee. But now that we are where we are, I think, Mr. Speaker, we respect the communication from the chair, and my committee will proceed to consider this matter. But just to address the House on this issue of public participation, you know, Mr. Speaker, if you read Article 257, there is nowhere where an obligation is placed either on the county assemblies or even on the Senate to undertake public participation. That can be compared with what is in Article 256(2), where Parliament is obligated to publicize any bill to amend this constitution and facilitate public participation about the bill. So if you are really to take it on face value, one may say that it is not even necessary to undertake public participation under Article 257. However, Mr. Speaker, we cannot close our eyes to Article 10. And Article 10, the subheading is national values and principles of governance. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at 10 sub-article 2, it says the principles of public governance include patriotism, sharing and devolution of power, rule of law, democracy, and I want to underline this one, participation of the people. So it is actually the national values enumerated in Article 10 that guides the House in ensuring that we do public participation. Number two, Mr. Speaker, you know, everything that we do in this House can be checked by the judiciary. So we really must proceed with caution and ensure that any process that we are doing as a House is within the confines of the Constitution, and that if it was to find its way to the judiciary, then will not be found to have violated the Constitution. That's why, Mr. Speaker, I think the decision that has been made by the leadership that this bill be subjected to public participation is with a lot of wisdom, and it should carry the day. Thirdly, you know, Mr. Speaker, you can look at the process of amending the Constitution under 5(6), and if you look at the subheading there, it says amendment by parliamentary initiative. And there's a whole process that has been enumerated in Article 256. If you go to 257, it says amendment by popular initiative. So the two processes are distinct. When you go to the one that is through parliamentary initiative, if you go to 256, I think B and C, there must be 90 days within the first reading, when the bill is first read in the House before it goes to the next stage. But if you go to 257, there is no mention of that period of 90 days. And on this issue of whether the bill that was before the Assembly was a draft bill, Mr. Speaker, we were able to get a copy of the bill that was sent to the assemblies. That's the one that was published on the 25th of November, 2020. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the heading, it says Bill to amend the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2010. So we already have a bill that was published, sent to the county assemblies, and that is the bill that under 257, 256 was delivered to the speakers of the two assemblies. In fact, if you read 2576, it says, if county assembly approves the draft bill within 3 months after the date it was submitted by the commission, the speaker of the county assembly shall deliver a copy of the bill to the speakers of the two houses. So really, the idea of saying you publish the bill may not arise, because what is being introduced in the House under 2572 is the bill that has already been debated by the county assemblies, passed, and delivered to your office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Senator Mtula, still want to, or we proceed? I can see you briefly.
My initial proposal still stands that our chair, ideally, for just to clarify some of those issues, can issue just a comprehensive statement, step by step. The suggestion by Senator Kajwang is also covered somewhere in terms of the rest of the articles. You have to read 255, 256, and 257, so that then you can understand that you don't need an assent. The minute it is passed, there's no assent. It becomes law under 257. But the clarification is important. Thank you.
The leader of minority.
I just want to go back to, I want to go back to where I was. Mr. Speaker, remember you have had a matter in the Court of Appeal which is pending, and in the High Court. On a very simple matter, Article 110.3, what is concurrence? Yeah. Whether it is mandatory, whether it is an essential step. And after we were heard, the judges took about 3 months to discuss that matter and consider it fully. I think that being the body that is vested with the powers under 257, once the county assemblies approve the bill, I still plead with a little caution, so that the two committees, who are headed by very senior lawyers from both houses. In fact, in the other house, one of the members was a member of the what was it called? The Committee of Experts. And Mr. Speaker, you remember that when the issue arose, the advisory opinion that went to the Supreme Court, and Senator Murkomen likes referring to it because he was a member of the task force. The court was using the report of the task force to help them, interpret the Constitution. So this may be a matter which is already answered by the discussions which went around the Committee of Experts. And normally in interpreting a Constitution, and the Supreme Court has said that, interpretation must be contextual, which means you look at the history and you look at the debate that took place. It cannot be done in a vacuum. So I think because we've got a very competent legal team in both houses, and we've got a legal department, what you've set out is correct. But I think some of these issues, they need to think about it more carefully and give us an answer, some document we can refer to and discuss. Yeah, because we don't want to be embarrassed in this very important process. We may think we are doing the right thing, and because we have not done it right, then we can bring this matter to a halt unnecessarily. And the industry Okia Mutata, yeah, you would end up in court the next day because something which looked so open like this one, we didn't take it into due consideration. So I think we don't have these committees for cosmetic reasons. I think they should be given a little time to think through this process. What is a draft bill? What does the Parliament pass? Is it a bill? Is it a draft bill? Some of those answers. But I think it would not be right to take it through the first, second, and third reading, because the Constitution would have said so, just like it has said in 257, or in 256, or even in the standing orders for other legislation. We set it out in the standing orders, we set it out in the Constitution. But in 257, the reason being is that at the end of the day, it is not Parliament which is enacting the Constitution, the amendment. It is the people. Just like this Constitution, normally an act of Parliament, it says enacted by Parliament. But this Constitution, because it was done by the people, we the people adopt and enact. So let us not take away the powers of the sovereign, But the sovereign has also given us some powers also to exercise. Yeah. But I plead that these two committees should look at this carefully.
Oh, okay, I direct that the two committees, our committee and the committee from the National Assembly meet tomorrow, so that then you can give advice to myself and the Speaker of the National Assembly on how then we progress, given what has been raised on the floor of the House. It is so directed. Senator Kasanga, I will allow you to read your petition so that we make progress.
Petition to the Senate on delayed adjudication and settlement of squatters on Machungwani land in Taita Taveta County after expiry of the lease. Mr. Speaker, this is Senator Mwaruma's petition that I am just reading on his behalf. We, the undersigned citizens of the Republic of Kenya and representatives of Machungwani squatters, wish to present to the Senate this petition on delayed adjudication and settlement of squatters on Machungwani land situated in Mbogoni Ward in Taita constituency of Taita Taveta. Sorry, in Taveta constituency of Taita Taveta County after expiry of lease in 2013. We humbly draw the attention of the Senate to the following: that Machungwani area, which is land covering 2,970 acres, is among the ancestral land belonging to the people of Taveta, given as a present to the British soldier one Captain Morgan in 1914. That the lease was later transferred to George Criticus, who is the father of Basil Criticus, the current leaseholder. That the leasing out of Machungwani land, which made the rightful owners of this land landless in their own county, was an injustice of the highest order. The land leased out was not fully developed as expected, since only a small portion of the land is planted with sisal. The landless people evicted from this land started settling on the undeveloped portion of the land. That the number of people settling in Machungwani increased between 1992 and 1997, when Basil Criticus invited the people to settle there in exchange for votes, which enabled him to become Member of Parliament for Taveta constituency for 2 terms. That in 2000, Basil Criticus had abandoned the leased land completely and left the county to live in his home in Greece, but came back in 2003. That the people who settled in the land have put the land in good economic use and are currently leading producers of bananas, coconuts, oranges, avocados, tomatoes, mangoes, maize, and other vegetables, thus earning incomes for themselves and also employing others. And that the lease of the land expired in January 2013, and after the 2010 Constitution reversed the 999 period of leases to 99 years. Since the expiry of the lease, the county and national government have been reluctant to adjudicate the land and to subsequently issue citizens with title deeds. That the reluctance of the county government and national government failure to adjudicate the land and issue them with title deeds is making the citizens of Machungwani feel insecure after investing heavily in their land, and is making them feel denied their fair administrative action as anticipated by Article 47 of the Constitution of Kenya. That the efforts to resolve the matters raised in this petition with the relevant organs of government have proved futile. That there is no case pending in court or any constitutional body on matters raised herein. Therefore, we your humble petitioners pray the Senate through the relevant committees to deal with this petition immediately in view of urgency and seriousness of the matters raised. Make a resolution that the land of Machongwani be adjudicated and citizens be issued with title deeds without further delay, and take any other appropriate action that deems fit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, and clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.
Speaker, this is actually a matter of serious concern and requires, of course, the necessary attention of the Senate. But, Speaker, I think I have an administrative issue that must be handled. Now, the petitioners want this matter done expeditiously. The committee has 30 similar petitions. Yes. Now, going by its recent or its work output, it is easy to suggest or think that this petition will not be resolved within the current parliamentary calendar. It will go into 2023 during the current session. So I was going to say that in the liaison committee, where the big men and women who are chairs sit together with the speaker, you must find a method. Because this petition, in terms of the queue, will not be determined within the proposed period. Now, if you calculate 30 petitions, including 5 of mine that have been pending for the last 1 year, it's easy to assume that this petition cannot be heard by the Lands Committee within the parliamentary term left between now and the election time. Speaker, but these people are suffering. These people are suffering a great deal. And the courts and the people tasked with the duty of handling this matter, including National Land Commission, have not helped. Because these matters of public land should have been dealt with expeditiously by the National Land Commission. And the National Land Commission has not managed to help. I would have proposed that if we can get perhaps an ad hoc committee or another method to consolidate these petitions that are of a similar nature that require National Land Commission to be heard simultaneously. Alternatively, we give leave to this committee to expedite these processes quickly. Otherwise, these people are going to suffer. They're going to be evicted. Taita Taveta County has become famous for people who want to grab land, who want to chase away squatters, and buy it for a song. It is a famous county for this malfeasance that has been visited on Kenyans for so long. Those people are so poor, so desperate. Land that has got sisal, wildlife, it's got minerals, and benefits everybody else except the people of Taita Taveta County. It is very unfortunate that Taita Taveta County is amongst the marginalized counties of Kenya, yet the biggest hotels, the best Tanzanites, and all those nice-looking gems come from that county. It's actually a contradiction of terms. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Gertrude Musuruve.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to support this petition by Senator Mwaruma. And it must be very clear, and it's a fact, that land is a factor of production. And with land, you can do so much economically. It will give one economic empowerment. And so being denied of land over so many years is unfortunate, Honorable Speaker. And people cannot be squatters for over 50 years on a piece of land. These are people who have been even taking care of the boundaries and ensuring that land is productive. They have stayed on this land for so many years, and there are some children who are born on that piece of land. They do not know any other home, and there's need for the Ministry of Land to just to ensure that it is being fair and justice is done to these families that are being termed as squatters, yet they have made good use of this land. I hope that when this petition goes to the lands committee, where Senator Githiomi sits, he's going to do justice to these petitioners and ensure that they are given their rightful due, because they also have a future, they have families. But when your land has been taken away, you are grounded economically, you are grounded socially, and we have to see how to bring these people back to their feet. Honorable Speaker, I support this statement. May it be given the justice it deserves in the Committee of Lands. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Johnson Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I walked in late. I wanted to comment earlier on the issue of the communication on BBI. But Mr. Speaker, on this matter, I just want to pick up from where Senator Mutula has left off. And I can say the leader of minorities in the House, the leader of majority was here. I sympathize with this committee. As a chair of a committee, the right to petition Parliament in Article 119 is really an absolute right, that any Kenyan should be able to do that. And that is one of the highlights of the constitution that we have. But Mr. Speaker, administratively, this committee now has, I think, 28 to 30 petitions. There is no way they can be able to do it. Our standing orders provide that the petition needs to be heard and determined within 60 days. And I doubt many committees have been able to handle this. I've had a hard time. I'm happy my committee doesn't have any pending petitions. But Mr. Speaker, this is for the leadership, Senator Mutula being part of them, that we need to do two things. Number one, we need to split this committee. The number of petitions are mainly because of the width of its mandate. Land, environment, issues of housing, issues of settlement, issues of water. It's too wide for that committee. And Senator Githiomi has really distinguished himself as a very good chair, and he's also a member of my committee. But there is no way they'll be overwhelmed. And Mr. Speaker, the more we fail to respond to these questions by Kenyans, the less faith they will have in the Senate. So I'm really putting it on record that the first thing that we need to do is to find a way to split this committee. I've advised Senator Githiomi and a few members of that committee that within your committee you can actually set up subcommittees. Out of the 9 members, you can set up 3 subcommittees to just deal with these petitions and do a retreat and deal with all of these, at least half of them, within the next few, month or two. It can be done. But administratively, we need to split it. Then, Mr. Speaker, this is a question we need to answer. That in as much as the right is absolute to petition, as a chair of a committee, I realize that somebody can keep me busy by just sending petitions, because that's the first thing you must deal with. So our legislative agenda as a committee, you'll not be able to do. You'll not be able to do, oversight. You'll not be able to play your other roles, because all you'll be doing is dealing with petitions. I think half of them are from Taita Taveta. In as much as the issues are weighty, administratively there needs to be, a filter. That if a similar matter is being dealt with, that petition holds for a while until the committee has a certain threshold of petitions left and then brings them. Otherwise, we'll just bombard our committees, and our committees will be operated by remote control. On this specific issue, I really sympathize with the people of Taita Taveta, the good people of Taita Taveta, and I hope a solution can be found. Mr. Speaker, the only way to deal with this issue is not just through the petition. The committee can actually just call those who are, the relevant stakeholders, and in one sitting deal with it. It doesn't have to be dealt with per se in the traditional sense of a petition. We can be pragmatic. We have rules, but that's because the law made for man or man made for the law. We can be able to circumvent some of these red and, black and white provisions and be pragmatic enough to sort it out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abshiralak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this petition and say that issues of land, especially when it's dealing with communities, is becoming a big problem. I was a member of the Lands Committee, and yes, it's correct that there's very many petitions and cases that they're handling. That having been said, I think something needs to be done, even if it's ad hoc committee like Senator Mutula has mentioned. Mr. Speaker, when it's private land, it's a different matter, but whenever it's a community, it looks like we're having an issue. And the issue is that even the land index bill that we passed not so long ago, which had really had very clear definition of what is public land, what is private land, and what is community land, is not being applied when it comes to community. It's as if it's only private land that is well defined and well established, and there's evidence of shifting boundaries, not necessarily physical boundaries, but through definitions and degazettements, because all a government needs to do is to degazette or to gazette something as public or community. So I think this is something that needs to be looked at, and we need to really make sure that the Land Commission, again, we have a situation where the Land Commission will send you to the Ministry of Land, and the Ministry of Land will send you back to the county, and the county will send you back to the National Land Commission, and the circus goes on. I was a member of that committee, and just the SGR land issue took us the entire 2 years. And even to date, I don't think it has been resolved satisfactorily. So I think we need to really find a way as this Senate to make sure that, especially those for vulnerable people, because there are people that don't have a waiting or stay power to wait for until many months and many years pass. So I think something needs to be done, but more importantly, I think what we need to do is we need to summon the Ministry of Land, and some of these issues can be dealt with in plenary, I think, because whenever there's issues that have been escalated to the plenary, there's more action that we've observed as opposed to when committees are being asked to deal with these issues. So I think maybe what the committee needs to do is to prioritize which are the ones facing the people, which are the ones facing the most vulnerable people. Because again, I have seen a situation where perhaps when the big boys, the people in the SGR's case, for instance, the people that had big chunks of land that were owed the most money were the ones that were prioritized. When somebody that was just being compensated 30,000 didn't get any pay. So I think there's injustice in these land issues, but more importantly, I think this House needs to really look at its priorities when it comes to this. I support and look forward to seeing this being done, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Nderitu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this petition by Maruma from Taita Taveta. Senator Maruma. Mr. Speaker, mine is just a concern about this petition. It's not the number. For me, I'm not concerned much about the number of petitions. The number of petitions that we have handled, how have we resolved them? Because that would be the $1 million question. So that even if it would take the number of years that Senator Mtula Kilonzo mentioned, people can be hopeful that something going to happen. We had a petition from Laikipia, the permanent evictees. Yes, it came here, and I remember it was about 2 months ago, where Senator for Vihiga was talking about what they have done, the recommendations. But Mr. Speaker, for me, it's not about the number of petitions, it is the implementation. The recommendation after we have dealt with this number, many petitions, like for example, the 30 petitions, if the 2 petitions that came to this House, how were they resolved? And if they were resolved, then Kenyans can be hopeful that they can still wait. But if we are doing this as a procedure, it will be, Mr. Speaker, it will be an exercise in futility, because people in Laikipia right now, they brought their petition, it was hard, and I want to thank the committee. I remember Senator Kasanga, Senator Maruma, and the chair, Senator Githiomi, they came to Laikipia, they listened to those people and they even gave their recommendations, but they are still pending. So it's not about how many petitions are there. Even if we determine them in this house as it is required by our standing order, it should be determined within 60 days. If they're determined, are we implementing what we have recommended? That is the $1 million question, Mr. Speaker.
What's it, Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.?
The question raised by Senator Kinyo is important, but unfortunately this House doesn't have an implementation committee. This matter has not been discussed, although I know Senator Haniri raised it yesterday. But seated at plenary, once we make our resolutions, there's no framework for making sure that these things are implemented. We have so many. So Dam is one of them. We made recommendations, they were ignored. I hope, like the one that was discussed yesterday about the building that is being purchased by Uasin Gishu County, will not be ignored. But you have been here long enough to know that we have passed so many recommendations on BPS and nothing has been implemented. I've said this before, and the Speaker said it this afternoon, that we should now start reading the book of Mark or Luke and avoid lamentations. Thank you.
Senator Deritu?
There's difference between, I'm not lamenting, I'm just picking and observing a fact. That's not lamenting, and I am a good Christian more than Mtula Kilonzo, because even his name does not suggest anything, because my name is John, and John was the Baptist, and him does not have anything close to Christianity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senators, we proceed. What's it, Senator Pareno?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to bring the attention of the senators to a provision of the standing orders that I read the other day. I don't remember, it was 2 something, if the clerk can help us, that actually provides for each committee to be able to follow up on their own resolutions and call for reports from the various ministries that are handling. So we don't have to wait for an implementation committee. We can be using that provision of that order, standing order, for us to be able to call to order those that have not been able to implement what we have done. Maybe I can check the provision later.
What's it, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Pareno makes very strong points most times, and today is not an exception. And I'll just give an example, because this is really to exhort chairs. We are the implementation committees on our own areas. There's a petition that came to the House by the Kenya Railway pensioners. They had arrears of more than, I think, a year. They were suffering, languishing. In as much as we finished the petition, Senator Milgo will tell you, just today, we have had the 3rd follow-up meeting. As of today, we've been able to secure all their money. We reduced the delays from 12 months to 4 months. We've secured another 1.2 billion that they're getting on Friday to deal with that issue of the arrears. We're getting compensation for government getting railway, despite having finished the petition. Senator Faria is reminding me of Wajir. They had also a similar issue. Even as much as we had already tabled the petition, we went ahead and made sure all of those staff were able to be paid, and they were very happy. So I'm not blowing any trumpet, but I'm just encouraging fellow chairs that once you've finished with any work, you don't dump it, because you're your own implementation committee. And even you can task your secretariat at every subsequent, every other meeting, to bring back and remind you what is still pending, what are the resolutions you passed, to keep writing letters. It can be done, and I think that is the way to go. Because an implementation committee, I'm against us having an implementation committee, because a committee has dealt with an issue technically. You've gone through, for instance, on the pension issues. Today you've dealt with that, you've finished with it, critically and in the very technical form of it. So tomorrow another committee is starting from scratch, will not even understand the history of the issue. And then tomorrow they're dealing with the doctors, and then the next day the same committee is dealing with water. They may not understand
how, what went on, or have the, institutional memory. So it's just for us to encourage our chairs. And tomorrow we'll be at liaison committee. I will make that exhortation. And Sakaja is a Christian name, Senator Mutula.
Honorable Senators, I bring your attention to Standing Order 215, reports on Senate resolutions. That is the implementation of the resolutions of committees. That is on part 1 and 2. Now we proceed. Senator Melgo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition, and maybe beginning from implementation, I want to say we are not blowing trumpets here, but then we in Labour Committee, we've been ensuring that we take up an issue up to its logical conclusion. Senator Mutula Jr. will bear with me witness. Another time I invited them about the water issue between Kajiado County, Makueni, and the next county, and we were able to solve that issue. And as we are speaking right now, something has been done to those employees. I think that one, Morelos, was the most difficult one, and we managed to solve. So let me support this petition in terms of the fact that actually it is a challenge. It is quite unfortunate to learn that people are squatters in their own land. And one interesting story is that a foreigner would leave some chunk of land for well over 10 years, and then upon returning, will just come and take over as if maybe there were animals staying there. I think those people of Taita Taveta are actually suffered. It is unfortunate. In fact, it is today, I'm learning that there are even minerals there. I used to know that that particular farm that belonged to Criticals had sisal. But then that means that is a very protective land. But then our major challenge, I think our challenge is actually with the Land Commission, because those are the people who deal with land leases. They deal with, in this case, ensuring that title deeds are given out. And in this case, I can visualize the challenges that the people that have been in this farm are really going to serve. Where we've learned that they have already grown fruits to maturity. That means those people have been there for well over 10 years. And in this case, they are going to lose all their livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a challenge. One will disrupt a community that has been living in a place. I can compare this to my own community that have been disrupted in a Mao area. Each and every time elections are around the corner, and these people have had to serve. Some of them have had to pass on as a result of actually the stress that most of all their energies, they have had to deal land there. They have built schools. They have even constructed wonderful houses there. And each and everything that they were able to do is going to go to waste. Here, Mr. Speaker, we do realize that we are not only disrupting the old people, we are even disrupting school-going children. And for that reason, this is a challenge. It is our hope that the committee concerned with this particular petition, the Committee on Lands, will look for a way out, maybe to combine a number of these petitions, look at similar questions, and then maybe call on board the concerned people. I remember today in our committee, Labour Committee, we had up to about 5 groups. We listened to them. There was Treasury, there was RPA, there was so many. In fact, the house was so full, one would just get scared that we were going to solve the issues. But then we were very keen, because our committee is normally fully attended, and every one of us was picking up an issue, and we were able to solve. So I think the Lands Committee should find a way out so that we don't actually relegate this particular petition maybe to 2023 or 2024 in the next parliament. We got to solve it, and I think one other way is what we said, we can break the committee into subcommittees so that we have about 3 people dealing with an issue, so that we can assist these people of Taita Taveta. It is quite unfortunate. I can feel for them. And in this country, in a short while, those people will have to actually require medical treatment. They'll require food and very many other amenities. And in this case, it becomes very expensive to maintain communities that have been evicted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this petition.
Senator Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this petition. Senator Maruma has been known to continuously, fight for the rights of his people, and he's been doing that very well. Mr. Speaker, if there are so many petitions that come to this House, clearly Kenyans have some level of faith that things will happen. And Mr. Speaker, it will be very disappointing if the same House where Kenyans have a lot of faith in terms of bringing the issues here, still nothing moves. Let me give you an example of and I agree with Senator Sakaja that Lands Committee should either be split or let them have subcommittees to deal with matters. There is a petition I brought to this House way in 2019, May 2019, and up to now, I have not seen any reports, I've not had any visits, and I'm wondering what's happening. And the situation was dire when I brought that petition. There's a dump site that people were, children were, it was open, and children would go there even to, some bottles that were dropped there, from, some bars, and they were drinking, children, goats and animals, going inside that dump site and getting infected and dying. And some people, those are their livelihoods in terms of the town. There are, people who keep animals around the periphery of the towns. And those things are not being adequately addressed. And therefore, I agree that a Lands Committee, I think, land is an emotive issue in this country. There's so many things that go on in terms of land disputes, in terms of squatters, in terms of so many things that is happening in this country. And we need people who are on top of things, not talking about 2019 issues. Up to now, there's nothing that's ongoing, Mr. Speaker. And I think there are some things that they can remove from that committee. For example, wildlife. It comes under tourism, and there's trade and tourism committee that can work on land issues. So there are a lot that we can do, although ministries, I think, keep on shifting departments. But once the department has shifted, the role we should amend our standing orders in such a way that once departments move between ministries, then that option of the same department moving to the other one should be implemented, Mr. Speaker. And then the other thing, finally, Mr. Speaker, in this country, sometimes I tend to feel it is a crime to be poor in this country. Because all the issues that people face, majority, the brunt is felt by the people, the poor people. I think it is high time we become a little bit more humane in how we take care of squatters, in how even if we evict, there is a solution. Remember even the issue of Kisumu. A mosque which is almost 90-year-old being brought down just in a day. That is a historical site. And, there are just many issues that happen, especially those that impact on poor people. They have even no money to go to court or do nothing. And, Mr. Speaker, I think let us be a little bit more sympathetic with people who keep on electing us year in, year out. And we need to really, take care of them the way they have taken care of us. At all level of elective positions, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, I don't know whether we can strengthen laws and stuff like that in terms of the evictions, but like it's being said that even that when the laws are there, still they are applied selectively. So I think let us be a little bit more humane in this country in terms of how we handle issues surrounding our poor people who are not able to defend themselves, who don't have enough money to fight in courts, and who are just so vulnerable that if they are displaced from one place, they become totally destitute, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this country where informal sector is the engine of the economy of this country that drives this country, no wonder we don't develop. Because the very people who are engine of development in this country are the ones who face eviction. They are the ones who face, their business being displaced, their property sometimes being bound by some some unscrupulous business people who even themselves grabbed the land of the squatters. Mr. Speaker, I think let us have some responsible society in this country and let us protect our people. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kasanga, I hope now you are making your own contributions. Okay. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the Committee of Lands, I think, and yourself. And, the work is a lot. That is true. That is true what the senators are saying. But I believe, we're up to the task. Our chairperson has been, of course, very robust at it. And yes, we encountered a lot of challenges because most of our meetings have a lot of documentation and a lot of paperwork. But we manage, even during COVID time and using the online meetings. Now we are up to speed and we are managing, and we even have our petitioners being able to log in from some very remote places and are able to actually prosecute their cases. And as a committee, of course, realizing the number of petitions we have to deal with, we have managed to be able to, sort of put them together, the like petitions, and prosecute them at once. So although our meetings sometimes are very long, sometimes we sit for even up to 6 hours to prosecute several petitions that are of similar nature, where we get all the stakeholders together, whether it's the lands, the Ministry of Lands together with the National Land Commission or with the Environment Ministry, we get them all together, then we're able to prosecute several petitions at the same time. And I'm happy that we have tabled quite a number of reports. And I think what is now most outstanding is the implementation part of it. But now I hear about the standing order, so maybe that is something as a committee then we can pick on when it comes to now implementation of those reports. And I do agree, because petitions come to us, they're emotive, we prosecute them, and we prosecute them very well when they're at committee. But until it is implemented, then of course the rubber has not met the road, and the citizens then don't get their actual rights that they have come to us to prosecute. So I agree on that matter. When it comes to the constitution of the committee, when the committees were reconstituted, we lost some of very, robust members. And in fact, I'm the only female woman senator in the committee, and it gets very lonely sometimes, Mr. Speaker. We need more women in that committee. That is a sort of, work that, women would be able to increase the speed, or, the speed of prosecution, if I may say so. So when you're looking at it, then so be it. Let's have whatever proposal you have. If it is subcommittees, it means then the Secretariat needs to be empowered, because our Secretariat have to be really in touch with the issues. Some of them are fairly technical. So I don't know how subcommittees would work, but again, we are happy to be guided so that we can move these things fast. I mean, our time is running so quickly. We only have a year and a half to go. So it would be good if we can clear the table, Mr. Speaker. So I ask the House leadership, Senator Mutula, you're here. If we can get some female members on board, it would be very nice. And as well as you advise us on how to prosecute faster. And also including budgets. Because another challenge I've seen in our committee, when we have to visit places, again, we have to sort of put the like areas together, which can be a challenge. Because you cannot move from one county and cross over to another and another in a short span. So we tend to have to lump issues together and say we are now going to, say if it's Mount Kenya region, and prosecute the area, which means then we are on the road for 3 or 4 days. Then we have to do maybe Isiolo. Isiolo you can't do in 2 days, you do it in 1 day, and you have to hop from one section to another, hopefully with the aid of an air vehicle, which is a helicopter. And those costs are high to run some of these things. So again, we look for guidance from the leadership of the House. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, order Senator Kajwang. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 232-1, the petition should be committed to the relevant standing committee for its consideration. In this case, I direct the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. In terms of Standing Order 232-2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Honorable Senators, Senator Wambua, in regard to order number 8, that is Committee of the Whole, the Mark Beans Bill, the Senate Bill number 9 of 2020, Senator Wambua is not present. I therefore defer that order. Then we proceed to next order.
Order number 9, motion. Adoption of report of the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on audit reports for the county executives for financial year 2014-2015, 1st July 2014 to 30th June 2015.
Chairperson. Honorable Senators, the order is open for debate. Senator Gertrude Musuruve was on the floor, but she concluded her contributions on the order. Order, Senator Gertrude, you concluded your contributions on the motion. Senator Sakaja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support that this House adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment on the consideration of audit reports of Bomet, Homa Bay, Isiolo, Kakamega, Kiambu, Laikipia, Kisumu, Mandera, Migori, Mombasa, Murang'a, Nandi, and all those counties that are listed in the order paper for the executives for the financial year 2014-15, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 18th February. Mr. Speaker, I'll just make very brief remarks because last week when we had a similar motion, I was able to speak to it, and that was another batch of audit reports. Mr. Speaker, the first thing is to really acknowledge a gentleman who went to a good school, Senator Kajwang. Mr. Speaker, Senator Kajwang went to the Duke of York, or popularly known as Lenana School, and that is how he became very efficient. If you see the previous CPICs, if you compare them, and I don't want to compare members, it's not right, but the amount of backlog he was able to clear with his committee in the short time that he served as chair, Mr. Speaker, is impressive. I keep saying that it's unfortunate that many times in the Senate, we are here as morticians and not even fresh morticians. We are doing old postmortems from many years ago. If you're looking at audit reports, Mr. Speaker, of 2014-15, for instance, today, Senator, and I don't know which example to give, Senator Visiolo, Senator Abshiro, will be looking at reports of the former governor of Isiolo County. And in as much as it will tell you the systemic issues, I think she's interested really in what is currently going on in the county of Isiolo. Mr. Speaker, I am keen to look at the audit reports of Governor Kidero, but apart from the issues of system, because the audit is not just financial, but also system issues. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at Governor, I don't even know who's the governor of Nairobi now. I have to look at DG Kananu, and I want to look at NMS currently. Mr. Speaker, what that gives us is real-time audit and real-time oversight. This is a house of oversight, and that is our most critical role. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that I pushed, as we came into the Senate, the issue of the control of budget, sending each senator the monthly exchequer release for their counties. Because, Mr. Speaker, that gives you an immediate view of what is going on. And I want to thank the Control of Budget's office and the Nairobi office for the control of budget, because I've been getting them timely and they pick up their calls, they're able to explain. And Mr. Speaker, in the last one that I saw, I was really dismayed that in this financial year that we're going to conclude soon, Mr. Speaker, out of an allocation of 37 billion, Nairobi County government has only received 4.7 billion. And this 4.7 billion is for the entire financial year, and zero, and all that is on the current, zero on development, zero to NMS. NMS currently is operating on national government budgets. Mr. Speaker, it is not sustainable. Yeah, I'm glad with the work they're doing. They're doing a lot of good work, but this is a system that needs to be properly funded and oversighted. Because if you ask which vote they're getting money from, even at the national level, no one will be able to tell you which vote they're getting the money from. This morning, Mr. Speaker, we were discussing the issue of compensation of my traders who are here at Railway. These traders, and of course the railway scheme, are supposed to be compensated. The land was valued at 13 billion, where NMS is now putting up a bus park and some dispensary. NLC is saying that it is actually 9.5 and we have a dispute around that. But even if you say 9.5 billion, where will NMS get money to actually compensate these traders and the retirement scheme? Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, for now, the request for compulsory acquisition was made by the Kenya National Highways Authority, but later they realized they don't need that land. So they're doing it on behalf of NMS, and I'm sure within government they can be able to reallocate. But, Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that we need more sustainable ways of funding that entity, because at the end of this financial year, if you look at the audit, it will be difficult to then audit the county executive of Nairobi as well as the NMS. So I'm grateful that we've been able to come this far. I hope that there are more of these reports that are coming for us to be able to debate. And the one thing that I think we must do as a House to make us efficient, and as we finish this term, for those of you who are interested in coming back to the Senate, it will be important, Mr. Speaker, that in the same way we have a very robust and useful parliamentary budget office, that we need to set up a parliamentary audit office. A parliamentary audit office that goes step by step and hand in hand with not just the CPI committee, but with each and every senator in real time. So they're able to break down issues for you as you play oversight role. So that oversight is not subjective and political, that because I don't like this governor, let me say that he's stealing or he's not doing well, but it's based on facts and on reports, and it is real time, Mr. Speaker, that even we can ask for special audits through the Parliamentary Audit Office. Mr. Speaker, I think it's something we can explore. Senator Mutula, you sit in the Finance Committee and you're patched high up in leadership. It's something we can explore even not just as legacy, but to actually make the work of Senate under, as provided for in the Constitution, more effective, as opposed to me looking at reports of 2014 and 15, and then trying to understand for myself the most recent report. If you had a Parliamentary Audit Office, the most recent report by the Auditor General, I can be able to sit with them and go through the executive of Nairobi County, the legislature of Nairobi County Assembly. I can be able to go through NMS and know really whether Nairobians are getting value for the money and the taxes that they're paying, and whether us, because, Mr. Speaker, we haggle in this House, we fight for allocations. Mr. Speaker, I am proud as Nairobi Senator that in my time, I have moved our allocation from 15 billion to 19 billion. The first year was 15.6, then 15.8, and we've gone up, and so far 19 billion. If we pass BBI, which I know will be passed by the, if Kenyans deem it fit for us to pass it, and I pray that we are able to pass it, Mr. Speaker, Nairobi will immediately go to 25 billion. Yeah? So why would we fight so much on how much money we give our counties? And I'm sure the rest of the senators can be able to say what they've gotten. And then when it comes to how it is used, we are years behind. It doesn't make sense. Mr. Speaker, you are in a boot, or rather the senator of Samburu. When you're in the city, you're not the senator for Samburu. The senator for Samburu was taken, arrested because of looking for resources for his county. Why is it that when you're hunting, we put so much effort as a Senate, but in oversight, we are not facilitated to actually play that role? And facilitation, and people should get it right. Because I've said in this House that money that members wanted of oversight, I would not support it. Because it then looks like, we're trying to get resources for ourselves. And first of all, you had refused to use a formula. You wanted to give us all the same amount of money. The Senate of Nairobi with 85 wards and 17 constituencies with 4.3 million people was supposed to get the same money as Lamu with 2 constituencies. Even if you're to do meetings, you cannot do the same number of meetings, Mr. Speaker. If you're to meet 100 people per ward, that automatically for me is 8,500. So in the same way, you know, and that is why I don't support it. But when we say we want to be facilitated to do oversight and audit, it is this kind of oversight I'm talking about. That you can have experts, you can have auditors, you can have accountants, you can have people, you know, experts in finance, and people who can even do surveys on different issues. I can decide this year, with that fund, I want to concentrate on infrastructure and to see how infrastructure is being done, solid waste management in Nairobi, for instance, to understand how the social programs are being done. That is what that kind of money should have been used for, and that is what we should be doing. But by having these resources, human resource of a parliamentary audit office, then we should be able to do that. Mr. Speaker, the next point that I have seen in these audit reports is the matter of revenue. To that, and we say as a joke that we concentrate so much on sharing the cake and not enough on baking the cake. So we have a committee of revenue, commission of revenue allocation. We will soon need a committee or commission of revenue generation. If you look at our public debt at the national level, Mr. Speaker, we are paying, the biggest project today in Kenya is debt. We are paying thrice the amount of money we are giving to counties. But Mr. Speaker, it is because, not because we don't need to spend, but it's because we're not creating those resources. Many of our county governments, and if you look at these reports and go back to even the county councils, there's been very little change from what the councils were collecting to what now the county governments have been collecting, starting from 2013. And you wonder, with the new efficiencies, with better ability, with automation, now we have all of this, smart solutions on the phones, we should be getting more money. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, in Nairobi, we have more than 134 revenue streams. A few of them are automated. But still, the revenue collection in Nairobi has gone down even below the last county government. Nairobi County has the potential, and this I dare say, Nairobi County has the potential of raising between 50 to 70 billion shillings a year, as it is. Especially since we passed the sectional properties law, Senator Kasanga will tell you, from a perspective, we are redoing the valuation role of rates in Nairobi. Right now, it's at the Assembly. Nairobi itself can even be listed. Look at what's happening in Joburg. Yeah? So if we do that 70 billion plus 25 billion that we're giving to counties, courtesy of the formula and BBI, Mr. Speaker, we'll be talking about an audit of more than 100 billion that we need to be looking at, Mr. Speaker. And because we're auditing the expenditure of that, which will transform lives in this city, we need to strengthen oversight. Otherwise, it will be an avenue for pilferage. It will be an avenue through which governors can be able to collect money at source and spend at source. And we have known many cases where even vehicles of Wells Fargo in our counties, and I won't mention which counties, have been seen going to governors' houses with cash, you know, or their chiefs of staff. Is it chiefs of staff or chief of staffs? Their aides with cash and putting cash in the houses, Mr. Speaker. We must have a standard. There was supposed to be a national payment gateway that was to be effected, I think, by Posta and in conjunction with the national government. That payment gateway must make it uniform for all counties in terms of how they collect revenue, Mr. Speaker. Because once we do that, if you look at Chapter 12, Mr. Speaker, because we have a form of fiscal decentralization that limits the revenue-raising capabilities of counties. The 4 principles of devolution, number 1 is expenditure allocation, then revenue-raising ability, then intergovernmental transfer, and then subnational borrowing. Mr. Speaker, in our experience of devolution, we have jumped number 1 and number 2 and moved to number 3. Because if you look at number 1 is what you allocate, it's 4th schedule. These are the expenditure responsibilities. Once you've known those functions, then you cost the functions. When you cost them, then you say, what are the revenue-raising opportunities? Now, number 3, the intergovernmental transfer is supposed, if you look at all other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, I wrote a book on this. In fact, the first book on fiscal decentralization in 2009, within our context of this new constitution, 2010, was authored by myself. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at all the jurisdictions I looked at, India, if you look at South Africa, those with a form of devolution like ours, not federalism, the intergovernmental transfer is normally to fill the gap between what work you've been given to do by the constitution and what you're able to raise. But today in Kenya, no governor is going out of his way to think of how to raise more money. Because they are sure Senator Mutula will come with Team Kenya and Senator Milgo will be on the other side and they will battle and they will get their money. That's why even when we're having that debate, they were very proud in saying Senate is doing a bad job, there's no leadership, because they're just waiting for money from the national government. We need to review, and I wish BBI had looked at Chapter 12. Because I remember in Naivasha in 2009, before the 2010 referendum, there was a very light memorandum from Treasury with respect to Chapter 12 of public finance. And that is where we have a lot of our problems. Christine Lagarde told this country that the cost of the administrative structures in this new constitution will give us a problem like has been seen in many countries. And we're adding that now, even with BBI, in as much as I support it. So we need to rethink how we actually, are we setting up our counties to succeed? If you look at formulas, Mr. Speaker, countries like India have within their formula variables that make counties compete. Yeah? That the marginal increase in your county GDP contributes to whether you get more money. Because today, Mr. Speaker, our formulas are heavy on population and poverty, meaning a governor who's a governor for life in quotes would want to make sure his county is as poor as possible with as many people as possible, because that will mean then you get more money. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not competing properly. We've asked for certain indices to be put in the formula going forward, and I hope the next Senate that does the next basis will look at it. You know, poverty index, again, in the world of today is a measure of darkness, because all it tells you is the ratio of those who are below the poverty line and those who are above. You need to look at human development index. You need to look at, and I think CRA started with some of the things they brought, in as much as they had a lot of voodoo variables, they started looking at those issues of water, access to healthcare. So in as much as you don't like how they counted the access to healthcare, saying it's the number of visits to hospitals, yet Senator Wambua's county may not have enough hospitals to even visit in the first place, that is the direction we need to be going. So that we make sure counties compete on productivity, counties compete on being able to raise revenue, so that we grow as a country. And that competition is not the way governors are doing it. That today, I was in Meru over the weekend, and you see between Meru and Isiolo and Nanyuki, everyone is putting cess points. Yeah? It makes it even difficult to trade. You have to stop your truck. If you have a truck, Mr. Speaker, some of the work I do is in advertising, that is branded. The headache from Mombasa to Malaba, every county is looking for a piece of pie. Yet, Mr. Speaker, it would be very easy for us to have the counties, COG, and I wish I came for that meeting with them. I was following it online. Beyond just being a club, should make sure that, look, some of these monies can be collected centrally. So you don't have a businessman paying 10 counties rates, paying, 17 licenses. You don't have a business person having to deal with different standards of counties just because his vehicle is passing through there. So the issue of revenue, I think, on the audit has been brought out well, but we need to really emphasize on how we bake a bigger cake and how we consolidate. Governors have been, projecting very, very unrealistically how much they'll be able to get in terms of revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, beyond that, I would like to really encourage our county assemblies to take these reports, the reports that we're passing, and to look at them critically, Mr. Speaker. Our county assemblies are the first point of oversight. It's our county assemblies that indeed are the frontier, because we play a role of secondary, secondary oversight beyond the county assemblies. They need to do their work instead of just hobnobbing with governors and playing politics, Mr. Speaker. And we have a lot of beautiful legislators in our county assemblies, Mr. Speaker. I was in Nairobi County Assembly when they debated BBI, and I was embarrassed to tell them that, in fact, they would put to shame a lot of their own MPs in terms of quality of debate and quality of thought. They have actually very good quality of debate. But now they just need to have financial autonomy as assemblies, so that they can also keep their county governments to check. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this. I would want to hope that we start seeing more recent reports coming. I don't know what happened to the leadership, because we still have not constituted the new CPIC and I think delegated legislation, the sessional committees. Yet there's a lot that is going on currently. Let us constitute it, and let's put people who are vibrant, people who are able to, and every senator qualifies, but let's create a fresh team. Of course, some of institutional memory, but also just to reinvigorate those who are currently there. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo. Thank you, Speaker. Let me begin from where my good friend Senator Sakaja last left. A good practice in jurisdictions all over the world is actually to keep a permanent secretariat as opposed to members. That's what the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Commons does. So you find a clerk assistant has been with that committee for 30 years. It becomes continuous. Unlike our practice, where our secretariat is moved here and there, I have no problem with the practice, but it doesn't help us because the audits of 2013 for purposes of my county, Makueni, has no follow-up. It's just year on year, it's academic and not effective. Speaker, I recently did some calculations of how much money Makueni has received after devolution. In this financial year, it will be 60 billion shillings. Is there value for that money? Can I go to Makueni and proudly say that out of 60 billion shillings, the county has done anything worth the money that we have distributed? Mr. Speaker, the answer is no. What about the committee? I'm afraid that even the sight of the chamber today in relation to the discussions we are having on public accounts committees on all these counties just tells you that members have lost interest. How many senators who are currently in this house were here in 2014, 2015? They have no interest in following up some of the things that were done before them. So to some great extent, I think that the Committee of Public Accounts Committee needs redemption. There's some redemption. I've lost faith in that committee and I've lost faith in its work. And I say so because I've sat in so many meetings regarding my own county. The governor comes and gives undertakings to do several things within a specific period given by the chair. After that, nobody follows up. When you ask them, nothing happens. I've lost faith that the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate is going to offer the solutions that we need. And they are going to actually give reports that we can go out to the public and implement. The suggestion is a technical one. The proposal by Senator Sakaja might be the solution. That maybe that the next Senate must consider a technical committee so that a technical committee can plug into the books of accounts of any county and come out with results. And let me tell you, my dear colleagues, I've been taken for training both in the House of Commons and to NCSL, which is the National Council for State Legislature in the US. And I want to say this, that it is only in Kenya where everything is an audit issue. We have such little faith. We have such bad manners of operating that everything must be questioned. Every single penny has a query. In fact, in NCSL, only those matters that are of such fundamental nature reach the level of the Senate. National Council for State Legislature. It's an umbrella body like the CAF, Council of County Assemblies. Only those fundamental matters actually reach the level of this House. Half of them and majority are handled out there. But what is the current status? The county governor of Makueni is now operating with the county assembly members in a by-election. The county governor of Machakos is operating with county assembly members for purposes of the Senate by-election. Are those the same people who we are going to rely on to check while they're collecting money from the same governors? It's a shame, I tell you, and I'm disappointed that while we put in a lot of effort in this endeavor, chances are that we will not get much from the county assemblies members in so far as audit is concerned. The things that the Auditor General flags, for example, I raised this concern last week, that a document has been tabled here on COVID funds. The Committee of Health has not moved a notice of motion to adopt that report of the Auditor General. And the document is here. And that document was supposed to be, in fact, tabled by the committee led by Senator Sakaja and later led by Senator Kasanga. Why? Why is it that we have to wait in a pandemic like this one to audit the mismanagement of COVID funds by Makueni County at Senate level? Why hasn't the Assembly even noticed? Like in my case, we are supposed to have received 25,000 masks. Who saw those masks? I mean, who should have asked the question, fundamentally, where are these masks? It's the county assemblies. They're not asking. So I'm afraid, my dear colleagues, that devolution is going to fall on the sword of mismanagement. I was very glad yesterday to tell some people that I'm glad the money that we fought for so hard in Team Kenya and others is going to come out in the next financial year. Because if it had come out in this financial year, these governors would have spent this money doing very nonsensical things. It's unfortunate. These matters must be done at a technical level. The governor, I represented the former governor of Central Bank, Governor Mulei. This governor came up with a system, and although he was eventually charged for it, the system was able to plug into the banking system and find out the misdemeanors, malfeasance, and malpractices of a bank. That's how Charterhouse Bank is the only bank in Kenya that was closed with money on it, because of a system. The people who disclosed this information, of course, became US citizens even before the information was made public. They had to run away. Can we have a system similar in counties? Because I am completely satisfied. Governors are doing paperwork. The county of Makueni received an unqualified opinion. They have become experts in drafting good documents. But when you go to Makueni and ask, is there a value for money? They will tell you there's no value for money. The Auditor General now writes a report and says the Kalamba Food Factory in Makueni is a loss-making factory. 6 years after it was constructed, after it has spent more than 1 billion shillings. I mean, what are you talking about? Audits are supposed to pick these things in advance. Auditor is supposed to pick the business plan. Where is the business plan for factories here and there? Kitui has a similar factory called Kikotech. We don't want to hear stories 7 years down the line that this was a white elephant after money has been spent. We must accept our title, senators, that we are morticians. There's nothing we can do. We will lament, and that book must be read continuously in this house. We will lament and nothing can be done. The auditors seem not to have capacity to pick these things. I have heard stories, I can repeat them on record here, that some counties have, of course, pocketed some auditors, and therefore the reports are just shady. Can you imagine? And Senator Faria had a proposal, and this is my last contribution, that there ought to be a method for the ISPAC to be outsourced at county level. Let me explain. That a county can pick private auditors to audit its accounts, or the Auditor General is able to outsource private auditors. Because the Auditor General will not confess, but the office has no capacity to audit the 47 counties and national government. No capacity. So, all of us, Sakaja included, Senator here, are proud to have sat in the Assembly for them to have passed the Building Bridges Initiative, which is going to bring 35%. Makueni, if all goes well, will receive an additional 4 billion shillings out of that framework. It is a scary thought. Very scary. And I know Kitui will receive more. Machakos will receive more, Nairobi will receive more, Wajir will receive more. And so will your county. Now, if we don't get the audit, the audit, it's not just audit. If we cannot get the accountability framework right, my dear senators, we are opening up for grand haste, just like in the movies. Now, I've always wondered, and Senator Sakaja, because you are an expert in this, can we begin questioning the wisdom? The previous constitution had both the controller of budget and auditor general performing the same function. It was one office. Now I tend to believe there was wisdom in it, and let me explain why. The controller of budget is very quick in tabling reports on the requisitions by counties and how they've spent the money. Now, does the controller of budget under the Constitution marry the requisitions and their reports with the Auditor General reports? They're like two people, one left hand and one right hand, that doesn't know what the other is doing. To the extent, therefore, that county governments are altering their requisitions after they move from the control of budget and the Auditor General cannot pick it up. It's a complete waste of time. These are some of the amendments that I would have proposed, that you merge those offices so that the office is able to track the A to Z. You requisition in Nairobi to buy a table. When you get to the county, you buy a flask. How you alter that requisition and nobody picks it up is an amazing concept. And when it comes here to the Public Accounts Committee, they make a recommendation, surcharge, etc., nothing happens. Accept and move on has become the mantra of Public Accounts Committee. And therefore, in my capacity, we will try our level best to see whether we can improve the committee or even suggest new membership. But my view is that if we are discussing 2014-2015 in 2021, the second-term governors are going to steal like Jesus is coming, because they know that the senators who are going to raise this are going to raise this after the election, and they will most likely be in the Isle of Man or some very exotic island that has no network. And there will be nothing you can do about it. Because unless you can sanction them or stop them from leaving, there's nothing you can do. The public finance bill, management bill that we had proposed that now has to go through republication, in fact, has something very drastic. Because the Auditor General is not going to help us. We had suggested, as the Committee of Finance, that we freeze some expenditure just before elections. Governors, now that I have seen the by-election in Machakos, now that I have seen a by-election in Makueni, I guarantee that governors are going to use county funds to get governors who will not question their pilferage of funds. It's going to happen unless we can lock out some of the expenses that are done sometime in 2022. It's going to be very unfortunate. You're going to walk in there as a governor and find empty coffers. They will either carry the money in cartons or do something worse. Ban, like they do. Ban the finance offices. And Senator Wambo was right, that the only offices that ban in our counties, the only office that bans is the office where the financial records are kept. May God help this country. Thank you. Yes, I'm ready to be informed.
Senator Sakaja, on your point of information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted Senator Mtula to go towards the end so that I inform him, because I do want to stop that flow. You know, he's like a preacher when he starts and he gets fire. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of wisdom in many jurisdictions that still have the office of the Controller and Auditor General. And I think it is something that we need to discuss. If you look at the old Public Audit Act and how they function, and many jurisdictions, and I'll just give you an example. There's an audit function that the Auditor General does. But the controller function actually really complements and enables that audit function. If you look at New Zealand, Mr. Speaker, the controller and auditor general has, it's stipulated, and anyone can look at it. In its controller function, something that Senator Mtula just mentioned, it says the main features of the controller function are: one, Treasury supplies monthly statements to the auditor general to examine whether expenses and capital expenditure have been incurred in keeping with appropriations. Number two, the auditor general there can direct a minister to report to the House of Representatives, like the Senate, the National Assembly, if the auditor general believes that any expenditure incurred is unlawful or applied for a purpose that is not within the scope, amount, or period of an appropriation or other statutory authority. And then they can stop payments from a Crown Bank account or a departmental bank account to prevent money from being used for a purpose that is unlawful or inconsistent with any appropriation. This is what we need in this country, Mr. Speaker. Because now one is, I don't know, in a building in town, another one is somewhere else. They are not sharing these reports. Money is being withdrawn and used for very different purposes. And then we find out later as morticians, 2 years later, 3 years, if even we're able to find out. Because when they don't share that, the Auditor General is not able to tell us that this money was not used for its intended purpose. So I think it's something to rethink and bring back the officer of the Controller and Auditor General. Maybe we just wanted to create 2 jobs, I don't know. But that is what, thank you. I just wanted to inform him that many other jurisdictions still have that distinction, especially in the Commonwealth, countries.
Proceed, Senator Mtula.
Yes, thank you for the information, Senator Sakaja. It's always useful to ponder over these issues because we are legislators and we must continue doing this. In Germany, the auditor is called a president. And then to secure that office, the president has a longer term than parliament. As we know it, both House of Representatives, Bundesrat and Bundestag. So that then their term is not tied to the term of the politicians. That's how they do it. So the president, who is the Auditor General in Germany, summons everybody. They do as they please. They have security of tenure. So they're not subject to the usual games that we play when we are appointing an Auditor General, party politics, etc., etc. And those are some of the things that we need to think about. Because I've said the security, the process of audit cannot be left to members of the Senate. It must.
Fanya hivi, wewe teremuka tu chini. Hata watu wanangojea, unasema unione, si ninakuona ndio huyu kucha. Kucha ninakuona.
Yoi.
Nimekuita mara ngapi Kate? This is the Nissan Note.
Hii ndio motoka.
Not that this is the Nissan Note we are giving out.
Na ni rahisi sana kuwekelea bid. Unaenda kwenye lipa na M-Pesa. Unaweka paybill number 4032353. Kisha unakelea account number ya Nissan Note ni Note, N-O-T-E. Namba ambayo unapenda, labda unapenda 100, labda unapenda 200. Wekelea